We are going to call this meeting to order. Para traducción en español en vivo, pueden escanear el código localizado en la última página de la agenda. Vice Mayor.
I please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and please stay standing for the invocation.
Amen. Let's pray. Father, Lord, once again, we just thank you for this opportunity to gather in these chambers, Lord, to come together. Father, I thank you for the unity that's in the room, Lord, that all of us in this place, our desire is that Riverbank would get better and stronger. Lord, we thank you for the council that's before us, the city staff, Lord, as they have positioned themselves to hear public comment, Lord, and then advocate for us as the state of California has requests and hearing our voice, Lord. We just pray that you give them wisdom tonight in making the best decision and moving forward. And that all of us in this place, Lord, we would do our part in contributing, making Riverbank the best city in Stanislaus County. En el nombre de Cristo. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe,
Here.
Councilmember Pimentel,
Here.
Councilmember Call,
Here.
Vice Mayor Fossey,
Here.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Here. There will be no changes to the agenda. Any council authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Presentations. So we have a proclamation for Women's History Month. If we can have Elizabeth come up front. So I am honored on behalf of the city and with the council to honor you with Women's History Month for Women's History Month. This is a long one, so bear with me. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. Whereas American women have played and continue to play a critical cultural, economic, and social role in every sphere of life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of labor force working inside and outside of the home. Whereas American women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. Whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, and the industrial labor movement, civil rights movements, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society. Whereas Elizabeth's work with CASA Collaborative and our regional community partners have strengthened essential programs fostering unity and opportunity for those we serve. You have emboldened every essence of our district's guiding principle, one town, one team, one dream. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Riverbank hereby proclaims March 2025 as Women's History Month and urges Riverbank community to recognize Women's History Month by celebrating with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And thank you for leading the way and being such a role model for the school district and for the city. Thank you so much. So you came recently to speak to us about the work you did with the McKinney-Vento program. If you could speak a little bit about that and just about the work that you're doing in general, we would love that.
Sure. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our city council members, the city, and our community members. This is truly a special honor. I'm humbled, and as you know, I recently joined the city of Riverbank. This is my second year, and I've joined with no regrets. I have joined a family, a familia. It's been a pleasure being able to support our Riverbank Unified School District School Board and Superintendent and leading the way and the efforts for our students and community members here in Riverbank. I happen to oversee CASA, as you stated, which is our family and community engagement program. But I also oversee our McKinney-Vento, our attendants, our students who are in house, school safety, Let's see, there's just numerous programs under student services, the Student Services Division. We are very committed here in Riverbank to be engaging with our community, our families. And really, it's about the students. It's about the work we're doing to ensure that we're providing equity and access to all our students and bringing opportunities to them to enhance their educational experience. Thank you. Mhm.
You mind if we take a photo together? And if I could have the council come down.
Fine bunch of people looking right there. Thank you, Randy.
Okay, we have a presentation from our finance department.
Mayor and council, over the course of the past several months, we've been providing department presentations so that the members of the public, as well as our newer city council members, can gain an understanding of what each one of our departments does. And so tonight, Tamiel Cantor, our Assistant City Manager, will provide you with a presentation with regards to the finance department.
Good evening, council. So, oh, just lost my PowerPoint. There we go. So tonight I'm going to provide you an introduction to our finance department. I'm going to go over some of the tasks that we do, some of the items that we're responsible for, and then even give you a little bit of statistics on what we did in 2024. So here's your finance staff. It consists of assistant city manager, the assistant finance director. We have one accountant, one accounting technician, 2 account clerks and 1 account clerk, and then we have our housing specialist. So the finance department is responsible for providing fiscal oversight and control to all city operating departments, playing a critical role in maintaining financial stability for the city. Our team ensures the city's finances are managed effectively, providing oversight on budgeting, accounting, and long-term financial planning. Other functions include cash management, business licensing, utility billing, customer service, cashiering, vendor payments, payroll services, housing, and providing support to our internal departments. The finance team is often the first to greet the customer, assisting customers from all departments of the city. And our team is dedicated to assisting all of our customers, residents, businesses, and internal with questions and needs. So some of our responsibilities include managing the city finances, which is overseeing budgeting and accounting and financial planning to ensure fiscal responsibility. Our department oversees transactions of the city, and it is our responsibility to ensure that revenues and expenditures are being recorded accurately. The annual budget process typically begins in February when departments are requested to view what their needs may be for the next fiscal year. Finance typically handles most of the revenue projections and all the personnel projections. And new budget requests are reviewed and approved with the city manager. In June, the city council does receive 2 presentations. The first is a major fund overview, and then the final budget is presented for adoption. We work with audit coordination, so we work with external auditors to review city financial records. This process upholds our financial transparency and ensures that the city's financial practices adhere to the highest standards. We have our citywide financial audit, and we are also audited on our Measure L audits annually, our Measure L funds, sorry. And there are other reports that are due to the state. Annually, we have a controller financial report, a salary compensation report, and we have to do a report regarding our streets funds and how we are expending those. Compliance and reporting, we ensure reporting of state and federal financial reports, payroll tax reports, and grant funds. Once grants are obtained, our team ensures that all funds are used in compliance with regulations and reported accurately. This guarantees that the city maintains eligibility for future funding opportunities. We are also responsible for ensuring the annual and quarterly reports regarding financial and payroll. This includes the issuance of 1099s to vendors and W-2s to our employees. Financial transparency is maintains accountability and adherence to financial best practices. Utility billing services, we process bi-monthly statements for water, sewer, and garbage billings. We process new customer signups and any account closures for signups too. Residents looking to establish service can apply through the finance department. Once they're enrolled, then they receive their bi-monthly statements detailing their uses and charges. We do have the ability for customers to make payments online, by mail, or in person, ensuring flexibility and convenience. Staff on a bi-monthly statement processes approximately 7,400 statements that are going out bi-monthly. Customer service, we support our residents with billing inquiries, payment plans, and customer account management. We assist with payment plans and our account inquiries on payment support, and then we have the multiple contact options via phone, email, in person for residents' convenience. So payroll, business license, and accounts payable. Our payroll is processed in-house and ensures timely and accurate salary payments to the city employees on a bi-weekly basis. We process the deductions, benefits, taxes, and retirement plans. Our team administers the benefits, manages tax withholding, and oversees retirement contributions, ensuring compliance with local and federal regulations. In the business license, we accept the business license application, and then we in turn provide it to our citywide departments and the fire department for approval on those businesses that are asking for a license to make sure that they're in compliance with all departments. Accounts payable, we handle accounts payable, processing invoices and issuing payments to vendors and contractors that provide essential services to the city. We ensure accountability, audit readiness, and budget compliance. Cashiering, finance accepts payments for all departments citywide, and it is responsible for accounting and allocating the funds appropriately. Accounts receivable, we maintain records for miscellaneous revenues in addition to the utilities that may be due to the city. This could be code enforcement, this could be industrial invoices or grant funds. And then we also manage collecting past due balances through collections and utility liens. In our housing division, we support low to very low income households with housing programs. The housing department is committed to providing excellent customer support to our community by providing them with information or resources when they need assistance with affordable rental housing information on city loan programs, or assisting lenders by providing them payoff demands. The housing rehabilitation program assists owners, occupants in repairing and enhancing homes. Home buyers program provides a gap financing to first-time home buyers. Although I will note at this time, first-time home buyers and the rehabilitation loan programs are temporarily on hold by HCD. Apologize for my stumbling over words. These programs are supported by multiple competitive grants from the California Department of Housing and Community Development. The city currently has 91 loans that are being managed, and that requires our housing specialists to do an annual review of making sure that they have insurance coverage on the properties, making sure that they are the occupants of those homes, and even with site inspections to ensure that the properties are being properly maintained. Part of the affordable housing developments, in collaboration with Home Investment Partnership program and various developers, the Housing Division over the years has worked to expand affordable housing options for seniors and individuals with disability. The notable developments include the Willow Point Apartments and the Riverbank Senior Apartments, which offer accessible and affordable living spaces for these communities. The Willow Point Apartments is seniors and individuals with disabilities, and then the Riverbank Housing, who is independently managed by Stanislaus County Regional Housing, has 60 senior housing and 30 family units. It is the city's responsibility to ensure that these properties are properly maintained and that the rents are aligned with the HCD guidelines. This is handled through an annual inspection where our housing specialist and building inspector visit the site for inspections and review their files to make sure that their rents are appropriate and the income levels of the residents are appropriate. These inspections and findings are required to be submitted to HCD. Staff is also required to follow up and confirm all findings have been resolved. So here's some statistics from our 2024 finance activity. Not up there is that we created over 44,000 statements across the throughout the year for utility billing. We had 795 utility accounts sign up. We had 577 of them closed. We made 311 payment extensions. We did have to send out 174 notices for return checks or payments. And we recorded 105 utility liens and received payment on 15 of those. Business license, we received 137 new business license applications that were processed. In payroll, we did over 2,200 in payroll checks that were issued to employees. 324 transmittal checks were issued for taxes, retirement, and various benefit payments. And we issued 121 W-2s. Accounts payable, we did almost 10,000 invoices were processed for payment, and we issued 51 1099s. In housing, there was 180 monthly city loan payments received and 4 voluntary payments for a combined total of almost 139,000. 91 initial verification of occupancy letters mailed and 78 reminders mailed. 7 homeowners insurance letters were mailed due to non-compliance. We had 3 city loans paid off for the amount of 175,000. 12 letters of non-compliance or delinquent sent to borrowers, and we did 25 home drive-bys for confirmation of property maintained. And that is what I have, but I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have on that information.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? One second. If you have a comment from the public, can you come up to the microphone? Just for our folks online. You mind speaking into the mic? There. Thank you.
The last figure of 25 home drive-bys, that was of how many homes total?
So that's regarding our 91 homes that have loans through the city. So we did 25 of those drive-bys last year.
So you got to about a third.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other public comment? Questions? Thank you very much, Tammy. You guys are a small but mighty team.
Thank you.
Okay, so public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another person under state law. Matters presented during public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. Do you want to manage?
Yes, Olivia?
Good evening, Mayor Hernandez, council members, everyone attending from our audience community. I'm Olivia Rambula, broker and owner of Timeless Real Estate here in Riverbank, but tonight I'm here on behalf of the Riverbank Chamber of Commerce. And I'd just like to let you guys know of a few events that we have coming up and invite you all to them. First off, we have our chamber board installation, Friday, the 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Perco's. You need not dress up for this, it's casual. We do have a couple of workshops we had mentioned before for this month, but due to people who volunteer to teach them getting ill, we're going to move our AI to April. And then our lunch and learn that we had originally for the afterlife planning will be moved to a future date. We do have an exciting event. We have our adult Easter egg hunt and our vendor fair, which we're collaborating with City Parks and Recs to put on. It's going to be at the sports complex on Saturday, April 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to have 3 different Easter egg hunts depending on the ages. We'll have that start. It's free to the public. If you do have anyone that you know of that has food truck or does food booths, like a 10 by 10 tent, or has any kind of vendor product, please, that's you or you know someone, have them reach out to us. You can have them, talk to me today if you have any questions, or you can have them reach out via the riverbankchamberofcommerce.org. We have applications and our phone number, so you can give us a call and find out more information and sign up. Prices are very cheap, affordable. The prices start at $35 for the craft fair vendors, and then food vendors for a 10 by 10. It is $45, and our food trucks are $100. So it's a good way to get out and see the community and be a part of that. We're expecting a great audience. So there's that event. And then also we have the Stanislaus Opportunity Steps Program cohort coming up. What that is that Stanislaus Opportunity Steps, they have a business development cohort, and we were able to thank you for everybody who did a survey, bring that to Riverbank. It's going to be held every Wednesday of April, and we ended up having it Timeless Real Estate because it was open and available. And then the first Wednesday of May, and that's going to go over stuff like business planning, fundraising, marketing, graduation, and marketing will happen on that May 7th Wednesday, which leads us to our all chamber mixer for all of our Stanislaus County. That's going to be held at Collective Spaces on Santa Fe. So Sarah is graciously being our host of that event for that night, collaborating with the chamber who is hosting it for the city. That will be from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. that night. So yeah, come on out, sign up. If you're interested in the cohort, just let me know. Go onto the Chamber of Commerce website for the application or the event information to sign up, and it's also on social media. So we hope to see you all there at these events, and thank you so much.
Rich Homer?
Yeah. Weird being on the other end. Good evening, Rich Homer, Madam Mayor, members of the council, 2116 Park Ridge Drive, Riverbank. I'm here tonight to speak on, well, first of all, I just want to commend the chamber for the improvements I've seen in this last year. They're really doing something now. But I'm here tonight to talk about, to me, is a real pressing issue. We need to do a better job of preserving our historical past. And I don't think we are. And there's 2 things I'd like to point out. One, I think one thing we need to do, as I go to Crossroads East, there's no art in public places. Crossroads West. If you go to Crossroads East, There's art in public places all throughout that. And so I think we need to look at the developers and putting art in public places in Crossroads East if there isn't any planned. But those are tract homes, and homes are special. And the most special house probably in Stanislaus County we have is the Zerillo Mansion. And its history is amazing. What I gave each of you was a sample resolution and several articles that talk about the Zerillo Mansion. And when I got here, they call it the Burger King Mansion, but really it goes back to 1912, when it was first built by a gentleman who was the head of the Santa Fe Railroad and a banker. And then it ended up with Mr. Zerillo, and he took no money, wasn't a thing. He owned the largest cannery in the world, processing cannery, where the canneries have been for years of tomatoes. And in addition to that, Mr. Zerillo was the one who built the St. Francis of Rome Church. So I think the history of that person, and if you look at, for example, the Whitmore, not the Whitmore, well, that's one, but the McHenry Mansion, that was a farmhouse. And what Modesto did was they turned that into a place where people can enjoy and the public can do remembrances. But it was just a farmhouse. So this was a mansion. And what I'd like to quickly do is I've given you a resolution, which probably, but I'd like to read it for the record, because I think this sort of pulls it all together and why we need to do something to make sure that mansion continues to stand at the corner of Callender and Topeka. And so the sample resolution, you folks, if you'd like to do it, I would appreciate that. And so with the Historical Society, last night they talked about it, gave me the go-ahead to come here tonight and talk about that. Recognition of the importance of the preservation and significance of the historic value of the Zerillo Mansion in the city of Riverbank. Whereas the 14-room Zerillo Mansion was built at the corner of Callender Avenue and Topeka Street in 1912 by O.J. Hobart, a Santa Fe Railroad executive. And whereas Lorenzo Zerillo, who founded the Riverbank Canning Company that became the largest tomato processing plant in the world, soon after purchased the mansion. I mean, think about that. We had the largest tomato processing cannery in the world right here in Riverbank. He also made Madonna wine during the, well, I won't talk about that. Anyway, whereas Lorenzo Zerillo married Frances Getty, an Italian opera singer, and brought her to California to enjoy the lavishly furnished Zerillo Mansion. Whereas the mansion had 4 fireplaces faced with Italian-made tiles, a marble floor in the basement, mahogany and oak and cherrywood paneling, and other high-end fixtures throughout the house. I don't think if you go around Riverbank, you're going to find too many homes like that, or Oakdale, or Modesto, or any place in Stanislaus County. Whereas music lovers from throughout the United States gathered in the living room for recitals by the talented Mrs. Zerillo. Whereas in the early 40s, Mr. Zerillo built the Catholic Church across the street from the mansion and named it St. Francis of Rome in honor of his wife. And I just, therefore now be resolved, the City Council, City of Riverbank recognizes the significance and historical importance of the Zerillo Mansion and its iconic place in Riverbank history. So I hope you'll take what the Historical Society and myself thinks really important to do that and just let people know that we care about our history and our past, and that's not meant to be apartment buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Conrado.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Good evening. I'm just here to let you know that I'm opposed to the Riverwalk project, the proposed Riverwalk project. Just to say that it's in the wrong spot, the wrong location. As you all know, I feel that way. I'm just here to ask you tonight to be sure to read. There's a lot of material on the Riverwalk project. It's going to take a long time to go through. And I'm asking you to carefully look, especially at the agencies' reports and the private citizen
reports that have come in. They really highlight the errors of this plan. And it's very factual and effective. And that's all I just want to ask you before it comes before you, that you take the time to read carefully and consider carefully the impact that this project will have. Thank you.
That's all I have in comment cards, and I see none on Zoom at this time.
Okay, thank you. So consent calendar. You have one more public comment? Thank you. We have 9.1 waive readings, 9.2 approval of the city council and LRA board minutes of February 11th and 25th, 2025. Item 9.3 resolution to award bid for the Oakdale Road Overlay Project to DDS Company, DBA Knife River Construction, and authorize execution of future change orders. Item 9.4 resolution to award bid for the Patterson Overlay Project between Claus Road and Snedeker Road for the Consolidated Engineering, Inc., and authorize execution of future change orders. Is there any council comment or questions on the items?
Just one quick question. Staff, was there any amendments to 9.2 before we move forward?
So we'll just be making a correction to the February 25th minutes. We inaccurately reflected that there was a motion made with regards to Councilmember Fosse's agenda item. It was direction provided at that point in time, not a motion made. So we'll make that correction.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
So I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the amendment to 9.2 to the February 25th minutes.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Pimentel?
Yes.
Councilmember Call? Vice Mayor Fosse?
Yes.
And Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Items passed unanimously, 5-0.
No public hearings. 11, unfinished business. 11.1, a resolution approving a land lease agreement and memorandum of land lease agreement with Verizon Wireless to install cellular tower at Castleberg Park and authorizing city manager to execute said agreements.
Mayor and council, this item is returning to you from a previous council meeting where it was continued. Michael Patton, our Director of Parks and Recreation, will provide the report on this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we wait, there you go. Since Gabby's not here, I went with a very bland presentation. So I'm going to be fairly short. We do have representatives from Verizon that I haven't yet to meet them, but if they're here, we'll present their stuff. And if not, I guess we'll move forward from there. But I want to just give kind of the history of where we got to where we are, and then kind of turn time to Verizon to talk about their project, and then some other addressing questions or concerns you, the public, may have. So Verizon land lease agreement for Castleberg Park. So the project includes leasing property at Castleberg Park for Verizon to install a cellular tower on an existing light pole and construct a 288 square foot space west of the existing snack bar for mechanical equipment. So as Parks and Recreation Department, one of the things that is not uncommon for us is we do lease space on our property to generate additional revenue for private entities or whatever it may be. So the concept of leasing property is not an uncommon one. We have done this before in our other parks. So kind of,
Sorry to interrupt
yes.
already. Could you clarify? Is it a Riverbank Parks and Rec typical practice or? general?
Both. So we have done this. For example, we do have a cellular tower at our sports complex. If a resident or a business would come up to us with a similar proposal, maybe not specific to a cellular tower, we would go through the same process and entertain it as we would for this entity right here. But specific to cellular towers, it is a common practice throughout nationwide. It also has various parks with various cell towers on there, and throughout the state of California as well. So kind of give you a map of kind of what we're looking at here. We have the location of the cell tower. We have the north baseball field on the southernmost light pole is the proposed location of the cellular tower. There is can be a line that connects that goes underground connecting to the cell tower to this new mechanical room that'll be west of the snack bar. And then kind of that red curvy line going in the parking lot, that is the easement for Verizon to bring their equipment onto the site to maintain and upkeep the facility there. We do have that existing trail that goes there, so that ease of the vehicles to get there is accessible. Kind of like a bit more out brand, kind of take it back a little bit more. There's a location and corresponds to the rest of the park, also the nearby neighborhood. So kind of provide a little bit of the history. So discussions with Verizon have began roughly around 2022. So it's been a project in the works. The Verizon has been in discussions with the Parks and Recreation Department. Back then with the previous Parks and Recreation Director, when I hopped on board, we met with them and kind of proposed a different iteration on if this project were to move forward. This is kind of our preferences. And so negotiations with Verizon on terms have been made that satisfy the Parks and Recreation Department as far as term length, costs, location, just how if the project does get approved, how to go about. So that is our presentation as Parks and Recreation Department. If there's the representative from Verizon is here, I'd like to turn the time over to them to kind of speak on their, I guess, the project itself. So we'll have Norma kind of pull that up and kind of give the podium to them.
Good evening, Riverbank City Council members. Thank you so much. Thank you, the residents, for hearing our proposal, and staff as well for their diligence in getting these presentations up so that we could speak to you tonight regarding the proposal. This is a brief agenda of what we're going to go through, why a site is needed, map of what is an identified gap area. We currently have sites in the Riverbank area, but there is an area of gap that we'll discuss a little bit later. We'll identify what is a service gap, why we have to fill those service gaps, how we fill those service gaps. And Mr. Patton just spoke to the Castleberg location that was identified and why the location with the city makes the most sense for us to move forward with. After my presentation, another presentation will be given by a separate entity speaker, Mr. David Wachowski, with Oku Solutions, to kind of enhance some of the, I understand there's some concerns that have been brought up by residents, and we wanted to make sure that we brought an expert that could answer their questions regarding their concerns. Do we have, I believe there should be a caller on Zoom. If there isn't, I can speak to the first slide. Her name is Carmina. Yes, Guzman.
And for the record, could we get your name,
Oh,
please?
I'm so
Yes.
sorry. Yvonne Pinto, Municipal Engagement for Verizon Wireless. With me today is John McCoy, our real estate specialist assigned to this project. And Carmina on the line, our RF engineer.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Hello, Carmina. We're on slide 3 of why this site is needed. If you could please speak to that.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carmina de Guzman. I am the RF engineer for this site, and I'm here to discuss why the site is needed in this area. So the proposed site is needed as the existing tower sites are nearing full capacity. We have a site to the northeast, and one to the west, and one to the south. And all of those are nearing exhausting. That means that the site are at full capacity. So in the presentation you will see the site locations. The green icons represents where the site locations are, and that means that the sites are currently active. And the arrows pointing to the direction are the arrows that are directing where they are picking up traffic So yeah, so these sectors are currently near at full capacity. So what's happening is that there is an effect in the performance of our service in the area, which means we will be experiencing slow data speeds and drop calls and poor service quality. So
Armina, if I can get some clarification, this is Councilmember Uribe. When I had discussions with Verizon, they had mentioned they wanted to offload the services from the one to the west and the one to the south, but they didn't mention the one to the north. But you're stating now that this is to offload all three because all three are now at capacity, correct?
So the one to the north is nearing full capacity. We are expecting that to be congested or exhausted by year 2027.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carmina, for the explanation. Are there any other questions by the council members before I proceed? Now, we've heard Carmina talk about capacity and coverage. How do we define a service gap? Well, Verizon designs its network to have low and mid-band frequencies to provide adequate both coverage and capacity. Coverage is the existence of usable strength and quality in an area. Now, capacity is your voice and data traffic. Any given facility can handle up to a certain amount. And then, as Carmina mentioned, it gets exhausted. And there's specific sectors on those two towers that are already exhausted. One's set to be exhausted 2 years from now. Low band service, that's the older service that you're probably used to that travels a great distance. But it provides less data capacity. 10% of our network is handled through that Verizon bandwidth. Mid-band service is a much greater data capacity, but travels less distance. Usually you're looking at half mile or less that's why when someone proposes, can't you go 2 miles away? You can't for that level of service. Carmina mentioned this briefly, but when you have a gap, what happens is, let's say you're at a football game and all of a sudden you're looking 3 bars, but you can't make a phone call. You can't send a text to someone who's at the refreshment stand getting something. That's because it's overloaded. The network is overloaded. You have data speeds failing, call quality delayed and compromised, the application ceased to function, internet connections timeout. Now, how do we identify a location? How do we fill the gaps? As Mr. Patton mentioned, this happened, we identified this location back in 2022. Now try to imagine this ring was issued probably about 2 years before that. We usually identify at least 3 years ahead where we're seeing patterns in our data speeds and traffic that where we know certain sectors, certain towers are going to become exhausted. And so we start looking ahead of time because it'll take usually about 2 years to put a macro site into service. So we try to plan about 3 years ahead in looking for something like that. We look at the codes. Once we've identified an area that's going to exhaust within a couple of years, we do an on-the-ground search for locations, analyze what's best location for the community, as well as elevation, topography in the area if you're in mountain areas. Then we go to contacting potential landlords. And as you know, without a willing landlord, you can't move forward. So
when you're selecting these sites, what's the radius for those towers when you guys are looking for to fill these service gaps? What's the radius for one of these towers?
It can differ depending on what kind of gap you're trying to, whether it's strictly coverage or whether it's coverage and capacity, that radius can differ. For this one, you're looking at probably half a mile max as far as a ring that could go. And Carmina can probably speak more to that later should you have a question at the end.
Was there a second location that was considered, or has it always just been Castleberg Park half a mile is pretty,
Yeah, several
big range
locations
there.
had been looked at previously, but were discounted by RF as not serving the coverage objective, which because of where those other towers are located, it's very specific in a very small radius of an area we've got to look at. So that's, you know, that's what we're dealing with from that standpoint. And Castleberg Park was the, you know, the Parks and Rec Department did indicate interest in moving forward with the lease. And then from there, after we select, as we did with the Parks and Rec Department, we engage to secure permits and approvals. Currently, this is the photo sim of the proposed site and location. And why the location? Bears repeating, but it will serve the gaps identified for this area of Riverbank. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is exponential growth in wireless. And we're not just talking, you know, more people with cell phones. We're talking smartwatches, iPads. It's not uncommon to have a single household have 5 to 10 devices per household. And that's what's driven the need for improved service, because what happens is when everyone's on their device all at once and someone tries to make an emergency phone call, they can't get through, especially if they're at some event where everyone's on all at the same time. Or there might be an emergency event, again, where everyone's on all at the same time. Americans used 100 trillion megabytes of wireless data in 2023. That was double from 2021. That means we're looking at probably, I don't know that we're looking at double, but darn close to it by the end of 2025. Reliable service. I think everyone has had an experience where they can't get a call to go through, can't reach someone they love, or can't reach, whether it's an ambulance services, police officers, all of them rely on these communication devices that rely on internet service in the area. 80% of 911 calls originate from wireless devices. And that's why Verizon approached the city of Riverbank to help. We wanted to collaborate with the city to bring full service to the area and fill the gaps in this area. Lastly, in conclusion, Verizon Wireless is in their 40th year of providing internet service, internet and wireless service. Verizon looks forward to enhancing the service in the city of Riverbank to meet the expanding needs of the businesses, residents, and visitors for decades to come. And we would like to collaborate with Riverbank in doing so. Thank you so much, and I will turn this over to David Wachowski for his presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Wait for my slides to go up. I'm David Witkowski. I'm the founder and CEO of Oku Solutions. We are a professional engineering consulting firm and focused primarily on the telecommunications industry. So my background, been in communications. Let me move this microphone a little bit. My background is telecommunications. I've been in wireless in some form since I was 18 years old. Right now, relative to what we're here for today, I am a senior member of the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers, the IEEE, where I serve on the International Committee for Electromagnetic Safety. This is the organization that sets the standard worldwide for electromagnetic safety. The ICES is comprised of over 200 members, including scientists, doctors, academics, engineers, people and government employees. We meet every 6 months to look at the research that's been done on the question of electromagnetic safety, determine whether or not there are standard changes necessary. We issue updates to the standard approximately every 10 years. The most recent one was issued in 2019. And these standards are then adopted by regulatory bodies around the world, including the Federal Communications Commission, which bases their OET Bulletin 65 on the C95 standard that comes from my committee. Let's talk about electromagnetic energy and what it is, how it affects us, and what the questions of safety are. All radiative energy is electromagnetic, whether it's heat coming from an infrared lamp, a stove, if you hold your hand in front of a fire and you feel heat, the lights coming down, radio, that's all electromagnetic energy. Sunlight is electromagnetic energy. We are bathed in electromagnetic energy at all times and every moment of our lives, because if the temperature is above 0 degrees Kelvin, there's some kind of electromagnetic energy in the form of heat, which is impinging upon your body. So the question becomes is, why is there a concern about cellular as a health issue when we experience electromagnetic energy of a variety of frequencies throughout the course of our lives from the moment that we're born? And that's pretty much why my organization exists, because that is a concern. People do have concerns about this, so we try to address that. When we look at the question of safety, we look at the question of how much power is being put out by the site. We look at the question of the antennas. They can be directional or they can be omnidirectional. We look at the frequencies that are used, and then we look at the distance away from the source. We're all familiar with distance from source because if you approach a hot stove, you feel the heat coming off of it. And then you back away from that stove, you don't feel the heat as much. And that's because there's what's known as the free space path loss. As you move away from a source, the amount of energy that's deposited in your body drops off exponentially. We can also see that in light. If I hold a light up to my hand, you can see that light fairly bright. As I move it away, you no longer see it. Free space path loss. Same works in radio waves. So as you move away from a cell tower, that power drops off exponentially. It's 1 over the square of the distance. Again, this is just an illustration of how heat is a form of electromagnetic energy in the form of infrared and visible light. We all understand that from our experiences in our daily lives. I've reviewed this electromagnetic engineering report that was produced by this site for Centerline. I've created a chart here which shows how that site compares to other forms of EM in your life, specifically sunlight. On the first day of summer at noon, about this latitude, you'll receive about 103 milliwatts per square centimeter, just in visible infrared ultraviolet light. The point at which we can medically measure a 1 degree centigrade rise in temperature in a mammal is about 50 milliwatts per square centimeter. Our group, the IEEE C95, sets that standard for safety, 98% or 50 times below that point. So we set our maximum at 1 milliwatt per square centimeter. And this site is 12%, 12.85% of that. So we are almost 90% below the level that the C95 sets, and that is then 98% below the point at which an impact on the human body can even be measured. One thing I'll note is that when we do these predictive reports, they are always worst case scenarios. They presume that the ground is a perfect reflector. They presume that there's nothing in between you and the site. They presume that the atmosphere is not attenuating the signal. When we actually measure a site in the real world, they usually come in about 5 to 10 times lower. So this 12.85 number that I'm giving here will actually come in somewhere around 1 to 2% when we actually measure it at the highest point on the ground. And again, I reviewed the site. The stamp for the professional engineer, Michael Fisher from Centerline, is shown on the screen. I talked about this history of the standard, and the reason I do that is because we often hear that people have concerns that the FCC has not updated their standards since 1996. And because that was some of the early days of cellular, that was even before 2G came around, the feeling is well, why haven't you updated the standard? In fact, we have updated the standard over the course of time. And it's just that nothing has changed, so the FCC has not updated its guidance. It's not that there's anything about 4G, 5G that causes any additional health concerns. So the standard does not change because we're simply dealing with the RF and not the modulation. That's why when we talk about 5G, we're actually talking about the modulation as opposed to the energy. So this standard actually dates back to 1969 in the NEPA standard, and then the formal adoption occurred in 1996. And then as you can see over time, the C95 standard has updated several times. The Federal Communications Commission opened a docket in 2013 to address the question of updating the standard. Subsequent to us issuing our standard in 2019, the FCC then issued FCC 19-126, which was their revision to their OET 65. You can see on the bottom, I've noted ICNIRP. ICNIRP is a European standard. It's actually very similar to ours. In fact, some members of our committee are actually also members of ICNIRP. And you can see that the ICNIRP has updated several times as well over the course of the years. So we look at this in the C95, the ICNIRP looks at the question of safety. What does that research tell us? Before we talk about the research, we have to define what's good and bad. Good research is objective. It does not seek to set a foregone conclusion. It uses reproducible methods, double blinds. It does not, it can be reproduced by somebody else if they choose to replicate that experimental method. So if somebody says, hey, I found an effect from RF, here's my study, somebody else should be able to take that study and reproduce reasonably those exact same results. Poor research is subjective. It seeks foregone conclusions. It fails peer review. It's not reproducible. It has issues with bias in the observations that are being made, and it typically is there's a far greater number of poor studies out there than there are actually good studies. The most recent study that has come out on the question of cancer, because that's typically one of the things that people are concerned about with RF, is the question of cancer, specifically brain cancer or ear cancer, has come out recently in the Imperial College London, the Department of Health for what's known as Cosmos was the name of the study, and that actually came out in 2024. They looked at over a 250,000 phone users, and they looked at their health over the course of 15 years. They looked at how many minutes they used their phone, and they tracked that against their health. And they found no correlation between the amount of time that they used their phone with the incidence of brain or inner ear cancers. This tracks with previous cohort studies, notably the Danish cohort, which was completed about 10 years prior, and the Danish cohort had similar findings. What I've just said makes sense because when we looked at the question of phone usage, obviously the number of devices, as Yvonne mentioned, has gone up quite dramatically. Just the number of phone subscriptions that we have in the US in the mid-90s began to rise very rapidly as phones became popular. But as we can see, the data from cancer.gov shows that cancer incidence and mortality has actually gone down since the 90s. If we were seeing a correlation between cell phone use and cancer, we would expect these curves to be aligned. The cancer incidence mortality would be going up as the number of devices in our lives goes up, because of course it's not just the phones, cordless phones, Wi-Fi access points, Bluetooth headsets, smartwatches, all the devices that we use in our lives that have RF, even this is probably infrared, but it is a form of EMF.
David, just out of curiosity, 2017, you see just a slight spike. Just out of curiosity, do you know what that spike is for? Okay.
It's just in the data in the data set that I downloaded. I'm not sure exactly why it went up at that point. But as you can see, if you draw a trend line through that, it's clearly going down. The other things that people have talked about besides cancer, there are certainly any number of things that have been attributed to wireless, cellular, 4G, 5G. Even around 2020, there was somebody who was going around saying that 5G caused COVID. And that was something that people believed. Now, when we look at the question of what are the health concerns that have been addressed, the World Health Organization has recently completed in the last 2 years several studies. These are systemic reviews of existing material, other studies that have been done. And they looked at the question of cognition. Does the amount of use of a cell phone address change your ability to think? Self-reported electromagnetic hypersensitivity syndrome. There are people who believe when they enter a room that has a Wi-Fi access point that they can feel it. They feel like it causes them health problems. Male fertility, that's something that's been attributed to cellular use. Tinnitus, migraines, other non-specific symptoms, pregnancy, birth defects. All of these things have been accused of being caused by negative outcomes being caused by cellular. The World Health Organization's studies, these systemic reviews in 2024 or 2023, all had negative findings or likely negative findings. The reason I say likely negative is because it's hard to prove an absolute zero. There's always some margin of error that's in a result. If you come in right at zero, there's going to be an error bar on that, and that error bar equates to a likely negative finding. But that doesn't mean that there was a finding. It just means that there's an error bar around a negative. Questions for you? I'm here for you in any capacity that you wish to ask.
Thank you. Are there any questions specific for David from the council? And if we can address questions from the 2 previous presentations, including Michael, are there any questions for either of them?
Okay, so I'll make some comments. And what I'm going to say is it's kind of to your guys' benefit. So one of the things I asked at the previous meeting that I had with you guys is what was the kind of outreach that you guys did, right? You guys have been working on this project for 3 years. This is good information, but you know, the people in my district, how many have heard this information, right? And so I think that kind of benefits you guys to be being out there and just kind of educating the public and getting that buy-in from the public, right? And that's not my job to be out there doing Verizon's work, right? That respectfully, that would be your guys' job.
Councilmember, let me clarify that I'm here to, as a third party expert witness, to talk about the RF questions.
Right.
I'm not part of Verizon, nor was I involved with the outreach. So
yeah, so I'm making a general comment for whoever would like to
for the audience.
No, absolutely. This is not directed at you.
Thank you.
The mayor opened it up for the entire group, so I'm just going to give my thoughts to the entire group. So whoever would like to address it, that's perfectly okay. I haven't had any buy-in from any residents in my district. Not one person has reached out and be like, hey, yes, I do want this. We have sports groups or baseball teams, softball teams. We have soccer teams out there. Not one is supporting this at all. And I've reached out, asked them to come attend, get the information themselves. But again, I think it would have been beneficial if this project, the outreach educational aspect of this started when you guys, you know, show that interest in 2022. The tower to tower locations is like 2 miles apart here on my map. So the half-mile radius it's not lining up. So I'm having issues with that one. So I would support it in a different location, like commercial to me makes the most sense based off the tower to tower location. But then again, that's my opinion. I think there are benefits to having it in a different location. The emergency services you guys kind of touched on. So I do think there is a benefit to it. I just don't think it should be at Castleberg Park.
Would you like me to address some of your comments? The city's process for, if we had been at a private property, we would have absolutely engaged in the outreach because it would have been prior to a zoning hearing. your process under your code right now, when you have a lease with the city, it doesn't allow for or have a vehicle to have a hearing, have the educational, ahead of time. It just, honestly, it just didn't occur. Your lease, your code calls for, if there's a lease with the city, there's no admin zoning, there's no regular zoning. And that's normally when we trigger an outreach.
So you're saying that our code is preventing you guys from doing community workshops?
No, what I'm saying is that normally our process is to engage in workshops of this nature. And we've actually recently, and I believe I mentioned this to you previously, I recently targeted my company for having an informational presentation, and we launched this in Nevada County as a test area. Only in January was the first time it was done. So as far as doing this pre-zoning application or right after a zoning application is normally when we would do something like this. Now, obviously with your code, we would ask to be agendized and set up a public hearing, outreach, that sort of thing. We just didn't have enough time this was originally set for, I believe, a consent agenda. And when it was taken off the consent agenda, we just didn't have time to fit in an informational session beforehand. And we had requested one, but we'll absolutely, as far as we would welcome, community outreach for any future sites. Plus, if someone wants to hear this presentation again, we'll be happy to give this again regarding this site. When I talk about the half-mile radius, I'm talking about where she identified the gap, not necessarily the distance between the other towers. Does that make sense?
Right, and I was referring to when you guys are selecting locations, what's the radius for that to fill in those gaps? That's what I wanted clarification on.
I believe it's about, Carmina, are you still on? I do not know if she is.
Hello.
Hi, Carmina. When identifying the gap, your radius, your RF site circle, how large was it originally? Do you know?
In my end, I specifically require a 0.3 mile radius to search for a possible candidate location until it gets exhausted and you need to extend the search area.
Slightly smaller than what I had said. And then they expand out from there if they can't find a willing landlord within the radius. But they do identify, they pinpoint the exhausted area pretty closely to where it has to go. And that's why Carmina was mentioning 0.3 miles is if you've identified the specific area where calls are getting dropped, capacity is exhausted, where the best location is to offload the exhausted sectors. She's very good. Our RF engineers are very good at pinpointing that ahead of time.
I don't know if we can bring it up, but the site where you showed where you have the 3 existing,
Yes. No, I don't think so. I think they've made it a whole. Oh,
it looked to me like one of them specifically was in a populated area, correct? One of them, you have one of them at our soccer. Okay,
there
so
we go.
the top left, that's our soccer field, correct? Or sports complex?
The greens, that one.
One up,
To the west.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
That's
That's a soccer field, correct?
and
Sports complex, sorry.
I believe it's over in that area. Yes,
Okay.
it's the green circle.
Okay, and then down below that one,
Yep. There's
is where's that?
Carmina.
Oh, okay, that's my
Oh,
old church,
oh.
okay. And then the one on the upper right, where is that one located? I mean, is it in a residential area?
or commercial?
It's probably residential adjacent, much like the park is.
So it looks like at least two of them are already in commercial areas or residential areas to some extent, correct?
Well, you do have to, in order to get these sites, I mean, you can't, because of the distance she was talking about, and when I was talking about the mid band and low band, you can't go too far out because then you won't reach all the houses that are in there in the middle. So you have to be, if you're not in the residential, you have to be residential adjacent.
And do you know, were you involved in the placement of those? And how
Oh,
long
no,
they've been there?
no, no.
Do we know if there was presentations done on those? Like Luis is requesting? Or were they just placed?
Not that I'm aware of. The one that was at the sports complex, of course, would have come for approval to city council since it is on city property. The other two are not
Oh, okay.
located on city-owned property. Therefore, it would have just been a negotiation with whoever the property owner was.
So I know the church one, and I know that was with the church. So there wouldn't have been opportunities for there to be any information given to anybody. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And I do want to reiterate that our informational presentations just kicked off this year. I was the one who helped spearhead it. So, as far as engaging, meeting with the community, I am present and available for anything that the city council would like in that vein.
So do you have current usage in that area to show us a comparison of what your projections are for the usage to validate needing a tower there? Because when I had the call with Verizon, it wasn't a need really when I talked to everyone. I wrote it down, don't need it, but will assist with coverage if people need it for events. So right now it's under the basis for large events and, needing it for emergency services maybe, or sending a picture if there's a Riverbank baseball game and it may be not going through because it's highly populated at the time. So what's everyday Verizon usage in that area? And what is the current coverage? And then what do you project? So to validate putting it in that area.
And we can bring that data if you'd like to continue this item, we can bring more of that data to show you I do know that with the two sectors that have the arrows, the one on the bottom and the one up there on the left, on the west side, those sectors are exhausted. So what happens when a sector is exhausted, the residents that it's supposed to be serving, the signal gets weakened because it's trying to serve the people over by Castleberg Park. And so if we put in a site around the Castleberg Park area in Castleberg Park, then those towers will do what they're supposed to do without having weakened signal and weakened emergency services and communication to the residents that are all in those areas. But we can absolutely bring, the data, the information about drive tests, data usage. I believe David did a brief drive test on the way here, but we can do a very comprehensive one.
My concern is that you guys have had over a month to prepare for and didn't bring us the information that people were asking for essentially. So that is a concern for me.
We weren't aware that everybody wanted, we knew they had EME concerns. That's why we invited David. But again, we would absolutely welcome, having a continuance and allowing us to bring that data that if the residents want it, we'll be happy to bring it and council members will be happy to bring it and establish that.
I have a question. Would you consider building somewhere else away from a park with children?
Would we consider
Putting it somewhere else?
We can bring in an alternative sites and with that continuance, we can bring an alternative sites analysis. And because there's such a small range, I believe there's only one or two, we could go back and reach back out to landlords who said no to us before and see if they'll re-engage with us. But there's, you know, there's only a very, like you said, the commercial, there's only a very small pocket that we can work with there. But we'll be happy to reach back out to them and again, bring that back with their answers to us on whether they're interested, that sort of thing.
Thank you. So it sounds like there's a need for more information. And for further clarification, the land lease funds, I believe it was about 2,000 a month, right?
Yes, I believe
And
so.
those could, Michael, could you provide some clarification how those funds would be used?
So similar to the lease that we have with the cell tower at the sports complex, those funds go directly to improve the facility. Annually, we do maintenance work on the grass for the complex for the fields that costs around $10,000. I think this year's about 10,500 that we shut down half the complex and just get it back to going so that those users can enjoy a nicer soccer field. And so the funds that we receive for this Castleberg Park for the cell tower will go directly into making improvements to the Castleberg Park.
I just want to make clarification because my understanding from the last meeting and our request was parents were concerned about safety for their kids and it, you know, causing cancer in their brain and stuff. And from what I understand from what you said, there's like a 0.1% of any, I mean, it's not really anything. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Because I think that's what, I thought that's what we were asking for before was our parents are concerned about how this could affect their kids. And do we have history of how it's affected kids in the past?
So David Witkowski, Oku Solutions. Yes, we have data on the IEEE ICES looks at this question every 6 months. And there are any number of studies that come out in that intervening 6-month period. Some claim to find cancer. As you go through these studies, you find that the studies that claim to find cancer are lower quality. They have reproduction issues. Higher quality studies have not found cancer. And again, I would point out that, you know, there's kind of a natural cohort going on in that we all carry cell phones, or at least most of us do. We do not see cancer rates rising. Children carry phones. We don't see cancer rates rising. I know, and I'll address the elephant in the room. I know we're near Ripon. And I know that was something that happened a few years ago. And I know some people are thinking about Ripon. I worked on the Ripon case myself. You know, there were a lot of things about Ripon that were, and of course, as a father, it was tragic. I would hate to have that happen. Any of us would, whether or not we're parents. We have an instinct to protect children as human beings. That situation in Ripon was likely caused by groundwater contamination. It was likely caused by the plant that used to be there that had decaffeination chemicals that had apparently been dumped. There was a lawsuit in which that company, Nestle, awarded damages for that. It's tragic that those kids got cancer. It did not have anything to do with the cell tower at Ripon Elementary.
So just a question for myself. The likelihood of cancer is the same from this tower as me sitting with this in my pocket.
Electromagnetic energy at radio frequencies below ultraviolet light does not have the ability to ionize. It does not have the ability to knock electrons off of atoms, molecules. Ultraviolet light does do that. And as we get up into ionizing EMF, that is a concern. That's why we wear sunscreen. We go outside, there's ultraviolet light coming down from the sun. It causes ionization. It can cause DNA damage. The frequencies at which we're dealing with in the cellular are much lower than visible light. It's much lower than infrared light. It's even lower than Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is in the 5 gigahertz band. We're talking about frequencies 3 gigahertz and below. The lower you go in frequency, the less energy each photon has. So it can't knock electrons off of molecules. So DNA damage, cancer, there's no mechanism that can cause cancer from RF, even microwave EMF. That's not to say that if you walked up to a very, very high powered RF source that you wouldn't feel it. You would feel it as heat, but it's not going to cause cellular damage. And every study, every high quality study that we look at says the exact same thing. And again, we've been looking at this since the early 90s. And even this study area dates back to World War II in the late 40s, early 50s, as we were coming out of the war, when new technologies like radar were just coming on. And the question of, okay, is this new stuff that we developed for the war, now we're going to apply it to FM radio, televisions, all the things, all the new technology that came around in that 1950s timeframe. There were concerns about health and people. I'm old enough to remember when people were afraid of microwave ovens. I'm old enough to remember when people were afraid of our electric blankets. I'm old enough to remember when people were afraid of fluorescent light bulbs. Right? I mean, every time we get new technology, it does generate a concern because it's new, right? Why was SARS-CoV-2 so scary? Why was the pandemic so scary? It was a new virus. We didn't know anything about it. It was invisible. Why are people afraid of 5G? It's new. It's invisible. They don't understand it. People have a visceral reaction to these sorts of things because it's new, which is why my group exists, is sort of where I'm going with that. That being said, I can tell you that 200 plus scientists, engineers, researchers in my group look at this question all the time, and we do not find evidence of cancer. I can say categorically that Ripon was not caused by a cell tower. It was caused by something else. There are schools all over the United States that have cell towers. We don't see cancer clusters at schools all over the United States.
Oh, I don't think we as a council, we're disagreeing with that. Like I said, you have good information here, good data. It's showing that it's safe as we've been sharing. But we're battling, like you said, the elephant in the room, the perception that it's bad with Ripon, right over here. There's a lot of misinformation out here. And so why didn't Verizon from the last meeting to now say like, hey, Councilmember Uribe or Mayor, let's go out to Castleberg Park and let's have a community meeting. Let's educate the people that it's gonna impact. We have a teacher that takes disabled students every Saturday to Castleberg Park. She reached out to me specifically, like, not gonna happen. Like, I'm not gonna take the kids there because the perception is there, right? And so that's kind of what we're dealing with, right? And so I'm not there yet, right? I can't get there, not at the park, right? Because the perception is there, and there hasn't been any work from Verizon to educate, right? To get the outreach out there, like, hey, these are safe levels. And so because of the lack of the outreach, right, to kind of show the community that, hey, we do care. We're not just trying to, drop an antenna in here and then just, do what we do. Like, we care about the community. So let's invest some time and let's do something about it and kind of educate the public out here that spend their days out here at the park, right? My daughter was out there today, right? And so that's what we're at. And so I'm still going to be against it for those reasons. So.
To that end, that was the reason why we moved it off consent calendar and are here today as well. I would like to open this for public comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Tammy, do you mind?
I don't have any request cards on this item.
Okay. Is there? Yes, please.
I was just wondering if there happens to be, it's kind of simple, any technology or any work being done to expand the capacity of the existing towers so they're able to observe more. So
Thank you.
She shot right up. We have C-band, which is the most recent 5G on all the existing towers. So when we say they're exhausting, we can't do anything else with the towers right now. They're exhausted. That's why a new tower is needed to relieve and offload these sectors. We can't sectorize. We can't add new rad centers. It just won't do anything to fill that area.
Is there any other public comment?
Hey, Mayor, council members, Olivia Rambula, broker owner, Timeless Real Estate. Thank you, committee. I'm gonna try to get this out here fast. I was here the night that this came up here and there were a lot of concerned citizens. I did speak that night. A few things as far as clarifying that the Verizon cell towers are for all carriers. I'm sure it is. It's going to all the different carriers out there, but just, there might be some concern about that. Concerns about lasting effects of the electromagnetic radio waves. What is concerned reason to look at reevaluating and do another survey or study on electromagnetic energy? What has to happen for that to occur? Cellular is an additional concern that is more available to more people now than it was 20 years ago. So we're doing surveys on stuff where people didn't have as many phones at that time. I've only had a phone for 20 years. I have grandchildren that have one now. So over time, this could take a long-lasting effect in order to affect someone's health. Tests cannot be completely conclusive for some of the long-lasting effects. As far as that goes, as far as some of the long-lasting effects of that, I think that we need to have a study that's done more over time. 15 years is long, but who knows how long it takes to exhaust those effects. Where do our presenters live? Do they live in Riverbank? Do they live near a cell tower? Those kind of things, what concerns would they have if they don't? Every person is different, so I may absorb different types of radio waves better than, or more than another person. I might have like medical effects or something that is concern, and I might be susceptible to other things if there is an issue or concern with it. Have we looked at those sites? I'm not sure if it's the Army plant on Claus Road, 5300 in Riverbank. Maybe that's a site that would be viable for it. I'm not sure if that's the address, but there's some place that is, you can't build on. Also, the reproductive methods research, maybe there's just not enough data. Over time, and exposure can be a part of that, and I don't know that we have enough time for that information. Correlation is not long enough. People have 30 years on their homes or leases, which there's homes across from the park. Some people live there longer. How would that affect them over time? Moving forward, at least a half-a-mile radius of the tower that we should be going over, or Verizon should try to do an outreach with them. Radiation and cancer are not a COVID conspiracy theory. They're new. It is a true concern, reality of the world we live in. There is a reason why the landowners are not doing this or accepting or saying yes to this tower. They're probably concerned. There's not enough data when it's likely negative, not negative. Change to the code, have public hearings going forward. Maybe we should make sure that happens. Have all sites surveyed, it's been surveyed, or these towers surveyed to check on all that data over time and where are they? And many people did die during COVID, and that did happen. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Questions? Nothing online? Okay.
I don't see any hands online.
Okay. I am going to bring it back to the council. It seems like there's very valid questions for some data that would like to be brought back. And I spoke to you online when we met that this council is very involved and accessible with the community. So I would like to open up to a potential motion.
So I know Councilmember Call wants the data. Councilmember Pimentel is in agreement with the second location. So what does that kind of look like as far as a motion? Do we vote on this one and then internal staff has conversations with him, or can we do that now?
Free to make a motion as the items presented. A motion to continue would also be in order. Council's call.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to continue the item for data collection and an alternate site.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Pimentel?
Yes.
Councilmember Call?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fosse?
No.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
So the motion to continue to a future meeting passes 4-1.
Okay, thank you. So we have item 12.1, new business, a resolution approving the appointment of Armando Rodriguez Jr. as alternate to the Planning Commission effective April 1st, 2025.
Mayor and council, this item is before you as our previous alternate planning commissioner, Stephen Link. His term expired as of December 31st, 2024. We did allow an extension in order to do a recruitment for a second alternate planning commissioner. 3 applications were received after the application period was opened, and interviews were held by Mayor Hernandez, who is here tonight to put forward her nomination to the city council for consideration. So I will turn it over to her for any questions you may have.
I guess I'll just add the, what's it called? A preface that, yeah, the 3 candidates came, all with very different experiences and different, I'd say like viewpoints on their vision for the city. I asked similar questions, but one I did add was, how would you, because I feel like there's an importance now for the Planning Commission to come to each council member to get more involved. And there was, significant commitment to coming to the council and speaking to each of you for your vision for the city as an alternate for the Planning Commission. And that is one of the things that stood out for this candidate. So if there's any other questions, I would love to take them.
No further questions. I'd just like to hear from the candidate.
Thank you, city council members, staff, members of the public. Standing here, hopefully I applied to be an alternate to the city planning commission. I'm here, I'm truly dedicated. I feel like with my background in construction management, also as a owner of a concrete company, I feel like I have that knowledge and the background of understanding these terminologies that are going around about planning, zoning, all these other terminologies as well. Since I am also a mortgage lender or loan officer, I have that understanding about, how does planning affect housing or what certain market trends are going on at the moment. So I feel like I could correlate and bring my my experience here to you guys, and I hope to collaborate with every single one of you, because I would love to hear about all of you. And I guess it goes back to we all work together. So thank you.
Thank you. Let me see. Do we have any public comment or questions? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. And if there's no further comment or questions, I'll open it for motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve item 12.1.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Pimentel?
Yes.
Councilmember Call?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fossey?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, item 12.2, consideration of a fee waiver request and permanent local housing allocation plan amendment request by Central Valley Community Resources, Inc. for the Riverbank Residential Home Village Project.
Mayor and council, the item before you is a follow-up to conversations we've had over the previous couple of council meetings with regards to a proposed development on the northwest corner of Oakdale and Morel, known as the Riverbank Residential Home Village Project. So just a bit of project background. Council does have a copy of the presentation at their dais as well. The project is a proposed development of a 67-unit permanent supportive housing project on the northwest corner of Oakdale Road and Morel Road. The target population will focus on those who are at risk of being homeless, such as young adults age 18 and over, seniors, veterans, and families with children, and individuals that are requiring assistance from behavioral health. On-site services will be provided such as behavioral and mental health counseling, vocational training, substance abuse support, and healthcare coordination. On January 28th, the City Council authorized the reallocation of approximately $1.5 million in funds that were received from a direct allocation via the State of California budget requested by Senator Eggman to support the project. You'll frequently hear me say the Senator Eggman funds. This is the funding source that I am talking about, and this is the dollar amount that I am talking about. For members of the public, this funding source can only be spent on a transitional housing or permanent supportive housing program. I cannot use that for any other purpose such as parks, streets, roads, anything transportation related. It has to be used for a transitional or permanent supportive housing project. On February 25th, at the last council meeting, council did adopt a resolution that authorized the submittal of a joint application between the city and Central Valley Community Resources for funding via the Home Key Plus program for approximately $20 million to go towards the acquisition and construction of this development. The grant offers a 1-to-1 match for outside funds that are secured, which is why they are here today requesting the fee waiver and the allocation of a permanent local housing allocation funds that the city currently holds in order to increase that capacity for match funds. So I'm going to go through the fee waiver request first that has been submitted by Central Valley Community Resources. They are requesting a waiver of fees that are typically associated with new development and with building construction. So the first fee that's being requested to be waived is our building permit fees. These fees for members of the public and our city council are fees that are based on the projected valuation of the project and include fees that offset city inspection services and city staff that are participants in evaluating the project itself. The projected fee for this development is $57,139.02. And the justification that CVCR has provided for waiving this fee is that this project will be a prevailing wage project. What does that mean? A project that uses public funds, such as this project, has to pay wages at a certain rate known as prevailing wage. The Department of Industrial Resources sets that wage, and any contractor that works on this project has to make sure that they're paying that wage to the project or to their staff. Unfortunately, for governmental agencies like ours, that does increase our costs significantly as we're required to pay that prevailing wage. In addition, this project will have a 55-year affordability covenant, ensuring that our lower income residents will have access to this site, and it will maintain an affordability covenant for approximately 55 years. The second fee being requested for waiver is a building file fee maintenance, which basically covers the costs to ensure that there's a permanent record of the development that the city keeps. And that's $314. Once again, the justification is that it is a prevailing wage project, and these costs will increase the cost of construction to the development. The third fee being requested for waiver is a system administration fee. This fee is charged to all new development to provide a funding source to offset the cost of administrating our system development fee program, which has a requirement to have funding available for certain capital improvement projects that mitigate the impact that that new development will have on our infrastructure. That fee is $95,003.30. Their justification for the waiver of the fee is that this project will ultimately help the city address its what we call RENA goals. RENA is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. It is a goal that is established by the state of California that basically dictates to all of the cities what our requirement is for allowing the construction of homes at different affordability levels. That is a state mandate. We are required to ensure that we have policies in place that will allow for the construction of those homes. We recently went through a housing element update where our community development department has shared that our responsibility or our share of that regional housing needs allocation is approximately 3,600 new homes in the city at all levels of affordability. And this fourth fee is the system fee report preparation. This is a minor fee that's charged to all new development to offset costs associated with updating the city's GIS files, planning commission files, and city council records. And that's $646. The justification for the waiver of that fee is the simplicity of the proposed infrastructure that's going to be presented for the proposed development.
Can you clarify what that means? Simplicity of proposed, what does that mean exactly?
So I will leave that question for the developer, as the city itself, city staff has not seen what that proposed infrastructure is.
Okay.
My assumption is that there's not going to need any major upgrades to our existing infrastructure, as most of it will be on-site infrastructure to serve the development.
Thank you.
Water and sewer connection fees. This fee is charged to all new development that ties into our sewer and our water system. The fee is considered a buy-in fee to assist in upgrading existing infrastructure that will be impacted by the new development. For sewer, there's a fee of $29,840 that's being requested for a waiver. And for water, that fee is $33,600. Their justification to have that fee waived is that they are going to minimize water usage as much as possible by using water efficient fixtures and equipment, washers and dryers, etc. And that the runoff into the sewer system will be minimized due to the minimized water usage. The project will install on-site infrastructure, so any water lines that will service the development will be paid for by the developer. The next fee being requested for a waiver is the utility deposit. That deposit is charged to all new utility accounts and provides a source of repayment to the city in the event that utility bills are not paid. Usually we collect this fee when a new resident comes in to sign up for service. If they have 1 year of good payment history, no late fees, we typically will refund that back to them. Or if they do have bad credit with us, basically, then we will continue to hold on to that fee in order to ensure future repayment of their utility bills. For this development, since we would charge a fee per unit, that fee is $10,880. Their justification for the waiver is that the financial contribution being made by the project is already going towards infrastructure, therefore they should not be charged the utility deposit. And the last fee that is being requested for fee waiver is the plan check fee. All new building construction undergoes a plan check process to ensure that the building complies with the current building code. The city has a third-party consultant who performs this review on our behalf, and these fees would directly offset the cost of that consultant. That fee is approximately $37,140.13. And their justification for the fee waiver is that the project is consistent with zoning. The design is straightforward, and the homes are what are called HUD certified, and they will require less review than a traditional home. Now, in the staff report and the letter that was provided by Central Valley Community Resources. There were 2 additional fee waiver requests. One was for state fees and one was for county fees. The city does not have jurisdiction to waive those fees. Therefore, I am not presenting those tonight for council's consideration. The next fees that are being requested for waiver are impact fees. So these are what we typically call our system development fees. These are charged to all new development to mitigate the cost of the impact that they will have on the city's infrastructure. The fee also funds new infrastructure that will be necessary to serve the development. We currently have what's called a citywide fee, so it will help to fund new development throughout all of the city. So waiving fees in one area will ultimately affect the development and infrastructure that will need to be constructed in other areas of town. The first fee that's being requested for waiver is our Streets and Public Works fee. That fee is $281,655.25. The justification for that is that the project will not generate any significant traffic, as many of the residents are going to rely on public transportation in order to get to where they need to go. The second fee is water at $646,853.30. It's designed, as I mentioned previously, they are designing that for maximum water conservation, and the construction of the on-site infrastructure they feel makes this fee redundant. The third fee is our wastewater fee for $250,863. Their goal is to focus on minimize water usage through the installation of water efficient faucets, low flow toilets, the high energy or high efficiency washers, dryers, etc. And on-site wastewater infrastructure will already be funded as well. The next fee is the storm drainage fee for $289,124.25. The project is going to utilize porous material, rain barrels, and possibly retention ponds to manage any stormwater runoff. We did previously have a new development that came forward to City Council for a fee waiver request. They did ask for storm drain fees to be waived, and that was because all new development is required to maintain 100% of their stormwater on site. This development will also have to comply with that same regulation. Parks and Recreation, $315,235. The design that they have presented will include open spaces, picnic areas, a playground for the residents who are on site, and a service center for them to use. And then the last fee is the police and general government fee for $116,335. Their justification for this fee waiver is that there's going to be a reduced strain on local emergency services, including police services. So that will alleviate any pressure on them, as many of the residents who they may typically deal with do have mental health or substance abuse issues. Then having a safe space for them where they can receive services to assist them will alleviate the pressure on local law enforcement. And so that is the fee waiver request, which is request number 1 as part of this item that is being presented to council. The second request is an amendment to our PLHA, or Permanent Local Housing Allocation Plan. So what is the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program? SB 2 was adopted in 2017 and provided a permanent source of funding to increase affordable housing. The city automatically receives these funds. We are entitled to those. They can only be spent on ways to increase affordable housing within the city of Riverbank. Once again, they cannot be used for general purposes like parks, streets, water, sewer, etc. They can be used only to increase affordable housing opportunities. 70% of the funds that were collected as part of this SB2 effort were allocated to local governments for eligible housing-related programs. The funds are allocated based on a formula to each city, and cities were entitled to start receiving these funds in 2019. In order to receive the funds, the city did an evaluation of the eligible types of projects. And so I'm going to go through what those eligible projects are that are allowed under SB2. Permanent local housing allocation funds can be spent on the pre-development, development, acquisition, rehabilitation, and preservation of multifamily residential live-work, rental housing that is affordable to extremely low, very low, low, or moderate income household. And it can also include paying for operating subsidies for those that are rental units. The second type of allowable expense is the pre-development, development, acquisition, rehabilitation, preservation of affordable rental and ownership housing. And this can include adding accessory dwelling units that meet the needs of a growing workforce that can earn up to 120% of our area median income, or 150% of the area median income in what's considered the high cost areas. That basically is Southern California. For when construction or when the funds are being used for ADUs or accessory dwelling units, the ADUs shall be available for occupancy for a term of no less than 30 days. Other types of expenses that are allowed are matching funds placed in a local or regional housing trust, which basically keeps the funds in a trust until affordable projects arise that can qualify for other grant programs, and these can be matching funds for that. Matching portions of funds available through the low and moderate income housing asset fund. These funds, these low and moderate income housing asset funds were previously known as our former redevelopment agency funds. We used to receive a portion of property taxes to our former redevelopment agency that had to be set aside for housing projects. And those were set aside in a fund called the Low and Moderate Income Housing Asset Fund. So for those agencies that still have those types of funds available, you can use these as matching portions to augment those funds. We currently do not have that, so this is not something that the city would be eligible to spend this funding on. Capitalized reserves for services that are connected to the preservation and creation of new permanent supportive housing. That's an allowable expense. Assisting persons who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness and can include, but is not limited to, providing rapid rehousing, rental assistance, supportive and case management services that allow people to obtain and retain housing, operating and capital costs for navigation centers and emergency shelters, and the construction, rehabilitation, and preservation of permanent and transitional housing. You can also use the funds to make accessibility modifications to lower income owner-occupied housing. You can also use the funds to acquire and rehabilitate foreclosed or vacant homes or apartments. You can also use the funds for home ownership opportunities, including but not limited to a down payment assistance program. We call that program here as our first-time homebuyer program for the city of Riverbank. And you can also use it as a fiscal incentive made by a county to a city, where the county is trying to incentivize the approval of an affordable housing project, and being used as matching funds invested by a county in an affordable housing development. Typically, some of those funding sources that come from the county can be in the form of a grant or a low interest loan towards this project, and these can provide matching funds for that. So when the city was first eligible to receive the plan, to receive this funding, we were required to put together a plan of how we intended to use that. So it is a 5-year grant that the city was eligible for. So we prepared a plan for that 5 years. The first 2 years were for 2019 and 2020. 100% of that was allocated to an affordable rental project. That was our Stanislaus Equity Partners project that is currently underway at the corner of Oakdale and Morel at the Covenant Church project. And so those 2 years of funding has already been allocated towards that. The last 3 years, council wanted a variety of projects to be able to allocate the funds to. So they selected assisting persons at risk of homelessness, housing acquisition and rehab, housing rehabilitation, and our first-time home buyer program. So a portion of the funds that the city is entitled to for 2021, 22, and 23, this is how we would allocate the use of those funds. So the request by Central Valley Community Resources is that for those final 3 years, I know the years seem a bit odd because we're in 2025, but 21, 22, and 23 have not yet been received by the city, but are available for funding for the projects that have already been selected. CVCR has requested that we reallocate those 100% to the development of their project. And so that would go towards the pre-development, development, acquisition, preservation of multifamily, residential live work, rental housing that's affordable to extremely low, very low, low or moderate income households, including the necessary subsidies to be able to run those rental projects. So currently we have approximately $417,298 in funds available for that 2021, 2022, and 2023 funding cycle. And so the total request tonight by Central Valley Community Resources is number one, the fee waiver that I did share for approximately $2.16 million. And then the reallocation of the 3 years of the PLHA funding for $417,298. So there's a couple of options that the city council has. They can approve the request by adopting a resolution tonight. They can deny the request. You can provide direction and return the resolution to the 325 meeting. I also got some questions from council members with regards to being able to go through each one of the fees and select whether they wanted to waive that or not. So that is also an option that we are providing for you tonight. So I'm available for any questions with regards to the information that was presented tonight and the city's fees that are being requested. We also have representatives from Central Valley Community Resources that are available in the audience and their team that has been helping them work on this development. They also have their consultant from Thurman Consulting who is assisting them with the grant application available online for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. So I can foresee this gonna be a lengthy conversation. I wanna open it up to the council first for any comments or questions.
Personally, I'd like to hear the public comments first, and then council go through by line item and decide that way. But I'd like to hear the public comments to hear what they have to say about the fee waivers and such. I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
Are there any other comments or questions from the council?
I have to say I'm starting to get concerned. I wish this project was presented to us more as a package deal, rather than coming every meeting presenting something new. When the program was initially presented, and I know that I was happy about it, and I'll tell you why, because it was presented as a program-based housing, where there would be some sort of rehabilitation, and potentially transitional housing. But now it's sounding like it's with the leverage, or reasoning of fulfilling our RENA numbers. It's sounding like it's permanent housing. And I'm concerned. I'm really concerned with that. And I know there are other people here with those same concerns because my phone has been off the chain the last couple weeks. And it just, some of the requests are contradicting to being program-based, because the goal in a situation like this is to get them ready for the world, essentially. So some of the requests to say that there's not a lot of usage on sewage or water or streets. I mean, isn't the goal to get them in a car and get them a job? So that's contradicting to this. So that's what I'll say.
My question is, what funding is CVCR contributing to the project? What funding will they contribute? Have to pay the fees. Will the project still be moving forward if you have to pay the fees?
So the city has made a commitment to housing affordability and helping our underserved communities. As we're looking through, and I'm going to echo some of the comments that were made, I do feel like there is a difference between some of the administration that we're going to need to proceed with as far as the fees go. And then there's some data that I think needs to be presented, and maybe you can answer those questions in terms of minimizing the water usage and the traffic impact. From the previous meeting, we had, for example, Tractor Supply come and present some data on how that would be reduced for the traffic impact. If for the water, designed for conservation and construction makes the fees redundant. I'm curious which part of the fees are redundant and maybe how we can proceed with some of the others. Let me see. As far as storm drainage, Maricel, you were alluding to how some of these new projects have some mandate and standards. So I would see how that could be justified. And then I am having a little bit of trouble with the police and general government fee waiver and the reduction of local emergencies to alleviate. I feel like that is kind of hard to justify, but I would love to hear from the applicants. And then finally, I would just love to hear in general where this is in terms of the grant application and how you see that proceeding on the timeline. If you want to come up to kind of start addressing some of those concerns, and then did you have something to add from the council? Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, if we can have Pimentel's questions answered first, and then I have quite a bit that I would like to ask. So if the rep would come up and kind of address those questions first.
And we will definitely open up to public
Yeah.
comment.
Okay, I'd like to kind of address this generally and then specifically. Permanent supportive housing is just that, permanent supportive housing. What it means is it's not transitional housing. Is you stay for, you're only allowed to stay for a certain amount of time. Permanent supportive is permanent. They can stay there till they die. And that's getting people involved in that. We did a project, it was my own building that we did for 14 at-risk youth, and it's permanent supportive. All of the support comes with that through behavioral health, through CSA, all of the different supporting systems that are there. So it is definitely a supported system to try to get them out and into the community and get their feet under them. the reason that, that we're coming at, the application process is very, very long, very, very arduous to work with the state, and they kind of make the rules as they go. So this is just part of the process of asking for these. And one question that didn't get asked is, what is other people doing? What do other jurisdictions do? When it's a permanent supportive housing, as far as I know, every one that was done in Stanislaus County, almost all of the fees that we talked about tonight were waived. And that is because it's a partnership between the city and CVCR to provide this type of housing and supportive services for our community. That's what it's all about. There are two that I would recommend not giving us the money for. That's your water and sewer fund, because those are enterprise funds, which means you're gonna have to pay for those out of your general fund or some other way, because you can't say we're not gonna pay the water sewer hookup fees, because again, it's an enterprise fund and they have to be made whole. The other funds are put into a bucket, so to speak, for police, for fire, for streets that are generally used citywide for their capital facility type fees. And those are the ones that have been waived. I can go down the list and tell you which ones are. There's a couple on here that are the water sewer fees. I don't believe you should waive. That sounds odd coming from me, right? But knowing that the state fees, frankly, it's not enough money to worry about anyway. The PFF fees from the county the county has in other projects like this, permanent supportive housing projects in Stanislaus County have waived their fees also. So the trend is because it's a partnership between the jurisdictions and the community, and all the emphasis from Sacramento on affordable housing, this is a way that we are able to help do that. The other part of it, and the reason, the other reason for this is that the state considers this as in kind, or we bring that to the table, which means they'll actually allocate that same amount of money that you waive. They'll allocate that to us to be able to use for supportive services and building of the project. So it's really important that you recognize that for everything that you waive, we end up, the community gets that same amount of money to provide the services for for our community. I will admit that if you look at it in totality, that's what the issue is. If you want to go through each one of the fees and argue that it should be this way or shouldn't be that way, we can do that. But really, to me, it's about we as a collective community are providing this service for our residents here, and we're partnering together to do that. And that's why you've given us the Eggman Fund. Hopefully going to give us the other funds, and it's all to try and get to the point where we can get this thing up and running. And we're really, really close. We're about ready to put our application in to the state. And our chances are very good because we have what's considered a shovel-ready project. It's not shovel-ready in my definition, but in their definition, it's shovel-ready, which means you have the land tied up and some certain things done. One other point I would make is that on the prevailing wage issue, we are doing these off-site. They're built, manufactured, and then brought in and set. They're set to grade, so they're just like a regular house. And the reason we do that is because that is done non-prevailing wage. If they're on the site, it has to be prevailing wage, but if we can build them off-site and bring them in, plus it makes it work a lot faster. So those are kind of like the overarching ideas about these funds and how they help make the project go. So if you want me to speak to specific things, I can do that too.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Brad. And so just for clarification, like we are trying to partner with you guys, right? And so that's
Oh, no,
how you guys got the
agree.
1.5 million. I think we're just looking for justifications, like legit justifications to actually waive these fees. We're not here to argue. It's just when you look at the building permit fees, like we have to hire 2 inspectors. And so if they're not covered, then it comes out of the general fund, right? So then the taxpayers have to cover that, right? And so we're just looking for legit justification, right? To actually waive this, right? So we have done it. Tractor Supply proved it for an item and we did waive it. So for the administration fee, right? So finance is going to put hours into it, right? We just had a slide about the staff and all the work they do. This is additional work that they would have to do. The preparation for the system fee, that's staff time as well. The sewer and water connection fee, you guys will be connecting, so it makes sense to charge that fee. If we had data where you guys were justifying the minimizing of the water usage and all of that, we want to see it, right? So just
But
not saying,
yeah, I know. And
Right, and so-
I don't think that those are, I wouldn't want to go to the mat on.
Yeah, no,
on
absolutely.
each one of those.
and some
because-
I've never, you know, I've been on the council only 6 years, but I've never seen a request for a deposit to be waived, right? You're going to get that, right, in a year, and you guys are going to get that back. It's security for this staff that they're going to get payments, right? Like it just holds it, right? And so that was a new one for me. The plan check fees, that's contracted out. The contractor's not gonna do it for free, so we have to pay for it somehow, right? And so that
There-
again is
There
gonna come out of the
there
general
isn't
fund,
any
right?
plan check fees on the building itself because they're HUD approved.
And then the impact fees. So this one I paused a little bit, just like Councilmember Call said. So we understand that you guys have to have the parkings because of the state requirements, right? But then to suggest that all 67 units, everybody that's living there, no one is going to drive a car at all, and so the roads are not going to
No.
be impacted for 55 years. Like that was kind of hard to swallow, right? Like so, I'm not there on there. Right, and so and I'll let you comment on that if you like. Yeah, so I'm having a hard time with a lot of this, and like Councilmember Pimentel said, you know, where's the buy-in for this stuff, right? And so it is. I had a discussion with the community director, development director, right? And so have you guys gone through the pre-application process, right? And so there's concerns about the process as we're going through it, right? And so and then this was an additional concern on top of that, right? And so we're still here to support you guys, but this was kind of hard to swallow, right? So let me pause there. I know Fassi had something to say.
Yeah, so when you come to the storm drainage, Maricela said that you have to comply by taking care of the stormwater yourself, but I didn't see in any of the drawings where there's ponds to store that.
There aren't ponds, they're under the street. They're pipes under the street.
And where do those pipes go? Going to the river?
They hold the water and let it percolate. It's very common.
I'd have to see that in the drawings because I've never seen that before. The other thing too, and I think all of us have had these comments made to us. A lot of the citizens are coming to us and saying, why is the city of Riverbank paying for this? Which is when I asked Maricela, when she talks about the funds that you guys have previously gotten, to make sure that they understand that they're grants that we got to give out. Nothing so far has come from anything with the city of Riverbank. And when we look at these requests, I can't look at my citizens and say, well, yeah, we did that because they're building this. I'm having a hard time being able to have to tell my citizens why I'm waiving $289,000 for storm drain, or, but like you said, the wastewater
And
and stuff.
if you go down each item, I agree with you. But if you
But
look
$4
at it,
million is way,
it's not
high.
it's
Or yeah, it's $2 million.
$2 million and we get two from the state that comes back to our.
But we have to account to the citizens in for me, $2 million isn't going to happen. So, but going through each one, we can talk about each one, but, yeah, anyway.
And I think there's pause in Councilmember Fossey because I mean, even in the report, it says possibly retention ponds. So the engineer reports are not even where they need to
But-
be.
No, they're not done yet.
Right.
No.
And so I
But we did a preliminary on the site that we had first,
understand.
park site, the new park site over there that
No, I
you,
understand. Yeah.
it was underground in the roadways.
I understand. It's just we need concrete data justification to, instead of just possible retention ponds, like Councilman or Vice Mayor Fossey was saying. So anyways, for the PLHA, I'll just make quick comment on that one. So they're requesting 100, I believe it was 100%. Yeah. And so one thing I would like the council to kind of consider is what are we doing with Sierra House? Right. And so that too, we're going to need to continue to fund, right? And so we have 3 students that are going to be graduating next week. And I would love to see them here for a little, ceremony celebration at the end of the month, kind of highlighting that. And so continuing that, I think a portion of this funding should continue to fund that. But I'd like to hear the rest of the council on that.
So I heard you on the point about it. It's kind of a shift in perspective and how the city is going to support projects like this. And that's kind of what the consideration can be viewed as. To your question about buy-in, I'll speak to let me know if this is a fair statement to make, but nonprofits work on the bare minimum. And so requesting partnerships is something that does happen typically.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of, the project that we did, my building, I got 0 for. All of this time is all volunteer.
Did you
Because-
remind us
because
of how you're partnering with CBCR?
I am the chairman of the Homeless Alliance, Stanislaus Homeless Alliance, and I've got a little experience with this, and I'm an engineer and I can draw. So I help all nonprofits do this kind of thing because I think it's worthy to have that done in our community. And I consider Riverbank, I don't live in Riverbank, but it's my community and I really like it.
Let's keep our comments to ourselves and I'll open it to public comment right now, please.
We have nothing to gain from this. We are bringing our expertise and the organization that's going to provide all of the supportive services that are constant on site all the time for everybody that's there. That's what it is. That's what permanent supportive housing is.
Thank you. We're going to move to public comment.
Mayor,
Um,
before you open that, can I just make a couple of comments?
Yes.
So, as I mentioned in my report, the city has recently gone through the process of updating their housing element. It's currently with the state for review. We hope to have that fully in compliance within the next couple of months as we continue to fine tune their requests for what our document should look like. The housing element sets forth different policies that we want council to be able to consider to ensure that we have methods to be able to allow for housing at all different affordability levels. Some of the different conversations that we had during the update was the possibility of having an inclusionary housing program. That inclusionary housing program would either require new development to set aside a certain percentage of their construction for affordable housing or pay a fee in lieu of that. And so, this goes towards the city's ability to be able to provide funding towards projects like that. That's not funding that's going to be available once again for any general purposes. It would have to go towards affordable housing. And so different incentives like these where city council considering fee waivers also adds to that chest of tools that you have to be able to have access to more affordable housing for our residents. So I did just want to make that comment. Second, we've had a couple of conversations about what the development is going to do. The development is not a care home. It is not. All of the folks who are going to be residents of this development will all have gone through a vetting process and through the county's coordinated entry system where we evaluate and the county has evaluated what their needs are. This will provide them a place to have an opportunity to live and not have to worry, not have that housing insecurity and be able to have an easy way to access services. The unfortunate part about being in the eastern portion of Stanislaus County is that a lot of the resources are all in downtown Modesto. Our folks don't easily access that or don't know how to access that. And so being able to have a location here within the city of Riverbank for them to be able to do that and not have to travel is certainly a huge benefit to the residents that will be there. So.
Thank you. And we will open it up to public comment. You will have 3 minutes and please address the city council directly and we will answer the questions as we go.
Okay, I have a card for Rosaline.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and general public. My name is Rosalind Chandra. I live in Riverbank and I currently reside in the Parkwoods community that is off of Westgate and Oakdale. And I'm here today to voice my concern about this tiny housing project. And after hearing today's meeting, I'm glad I'm here because it's interesting how what I'm hearing is that the city of Riverbank is opening up to be the next hub for God knows what. I feel like we're going to be the next Tenderloin district of the Central Valley. And all these plans are laid out so intricately for fees, waves, costs. I don't think there's much detail as far as the actual work of helping people. All I hear is money, funds, fees, this, that. To me, being a citizen, this sounds like it's all about money. Who's getting paid? Who's getting paid? That's what this is about. We got this much money. Who's going to get it? I can get some, I can get some, I can get some. It's really disheartening because I moved to Riverbank seeing a beautiful community. And every time I visited, I was really proud to see the city grow. You have a great shopping center. You have, communities that are being built. You have good people that live here. We're a community of working people. We work hard for what we have. We work hard to move our families here and to keep our families here. And to open a project like this, we never saw it coming. We bought into Riverbank because we thought this was a growing city for business, for homes, for families, and for community. If we had known of this tiny house project that's being projected to be built so close within the city region, I don't know about others, but I would have thought twice before putting my investment and my family here. I grew up in a place in a middle class neighborhood that had mixed housing. And you know what? It was not fun. We were normal. My mom was single. I'm not to say the word normal, but the people that funnel through hardships happen, life happens. I understand that. But being their neighbor, living next to them, growing with them is not easy. You have addiction, you have mental health, you have parents that are working hard, kids that are unsupervised. What does that do? Brings more people, more kids that are unsupervised, adults that just hang out, more adults hang out, and then before you know it, there's kids, they're getting approached by strangers. We're constantly keeping a watch. It's not a fun environment, not to mention the fires that happen because maybe electricity got put out. Someone wanted to stay warm, cook something. They make a makeshift fire. The house catches on fire. The neighbors' houses are at risk. So I have so many stories I could share of my personal experience. I know that life happens. I know bad things happen to good people. But if I had had a choice, I would not have moved here knowing what I know now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So the item today is for consideration of fee waiver requests in the PLHA funds. If we could keep our comments directed towards that, we will hear every single one. So I appreciate that. The next comment.
I have a comment card for Chessie.
Bear with me, I am not a public speaker. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and fellow residents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm here on behalf of myself and many members of our community to voice our deep concerns about the proposed transitional housing or fee waiver in our area. While we understand and support the need for affordable housing and services for those in need, we believe that the location of this project, particularly in a growing residential area, raises significant concerns that must be addressed. First and foremost, we want to make it clear that the community does not want transitional housing to be built on this side of town. This area is currently developing a family-oriented neighborhood, and the introduction of transitional housing in such close proximity could significantly alter the nature of our community. We moved here with the expectation of living in a quiet, family-friendly environment, and the proposed development threatens to disrupt that. We urge the city council to consider alternative locations within Riverbank for this project, locations that are better suited for this type of housing and are not located in an area that is still growing and establishing itself as a residential community. Many residents have expressed concerns about the potential impact of property values. Families chose to invest in this neighborhood based on its current character, and any significant change could lower property values, affecting homeowners' investments. Additionally, there are safety concerns associated with transitional housing, especially in areas that are not fully equipped to manage the challenges that come with it. We ask the council to take those concerns seriously and evaluate the full impact that this development may have both on safety and the financial well-being of the community. In addition to the concerns about development's location, we're also worried about the increased pressure on local infrastructure, specifically traffic. Our roads are already impacted by current development, are ill-equipped to handle the added traffic that the transitional housing project may bring. Has the city conducted any independent studies on this impact on the development, on how the traffic flow, public transportation, or any other key infrastructures will be affected? We are also concerned about the strain that this transitional housing project may affect local resources such as public services, healthcare, and schools. Our community services are already stretched thin, and the added demand from a new population could overwhelm our already limited resources. We're not opposed to the idea of transitional housing, but we believe that this project should be carefully considered and placed in a more suitable location that does not disrupt a developing family neighborhood. We respectfully request a detailed evaluation of the impacts, particularly on traffic, infrastructure, safety, and community resources before any final decisions are made. A transparent and community-driven planning process, including town hall meetings and other forums for residents to express their concerns and offer feedback. Even use of our newsletter would be great to inform our residents in our community about what's going on. A reevaluation of the proposed location for transitional housing and consideration of other areas of Riverbank that would be more appropriate for such a development. Again, we understand the importance of providing housing and other support services for those in need, and we wholeheartedly support community efforts to assist the less fortunate. That said, we believe it is essential to find a better location for the transitional housing project, one that is not centralized in a developing area, but rather in a place that can still serve those in need while developing to inject resources and investments that will continue to improve our community. We're committed to working together with the city to ensure that this developments are placed in locations that are both sustainable and conducive to the continued growth and prosperity of Riverbank. This is our city, our homes, and our quality of life at stake. We urge the city council to listen to the voices of the residents and to make the right decision for the future of Riverbank.
Thank you. You did great. And the reason why, I'm emphasizing the item tonight is because we hear there are different concerns, but tonight there's not going to be a decision made on whether or not this project moves forward. It's for the fee waivers. So I don't want anyone to feel, that we're not listening to the other concerns. So please stick to the item at hand, and we will move to the next public comment.
For JAG, Nadu.
Good evening, city leaders. If we're just going to stick to the fee waiver, because I was going to mention my opposition to this project, but if we're talking about waiving fees, I know it was mentioned that it's going to impact the members of our community. I mean, I live in that new community in Parkwoods West. I pay a Melrose tax. That's a premium tax to live in this community, and those taxes are supposed to help us, the hardworking members, building more schools, building more resources for us. So now you're saying if you're going to waive fees for this project, we're going to pay more tax? So I think all of my neighbors would agree. We highly oppose waiving any kind of fees for this. Thank you.
The next comment card is from Deanna Garcia.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff. So this has been a very long project, and last time I was up here before you, I heard Councilmember Stacy Call say that she was saddened about us losing the one bedrooms. So we went back to the budget. We found a new provider so we can get some more one bedrooms and take away some of the two bedrooms, because the budget had the price of the two bedrooms were the same as the one bedrooms in the studios. So then we went to all two bedrooms. But then after hearing the council say that they would really like to see some one bedrooms, we took that into consideration. We went back, we found another developer of these tiny homes that could fit our budget and get some one bedrooms in there. So this is an evolving project. This is not a concrete project. It's ever moving in all the pieces. And we find out more and more information as we work with our consultant to find out what's our next step and how we proceed to moving this forward. Nobody gets paid. Nobody's getting a salary. Nobody's getting not even a penny. This is all volunteer work. This is something that we find near and dear to our hearts, that students don't have a permanent roof over their head. This is, I heard Councilmember Stacy Call earlier say that this is permanent housing. No, this is not permanent housing per se. This is income housing, where if while your children are in school and you're a working mother, and maybe you have 3 or 4 kids, and your income allows you to stay in this house for what seems like forever, then yeah, you're going to stay there because we're going to put a roof over your family's head while your family is in need of a roof. But once your income doesn't qualify anymore, or maybe all of your children graduate high school, go off to college, and you're there by yourself, then maybe you don't qualify anymore. So it's income driven, and it's I've received 12 telephone calls in the little bit of time since the last time I was here. And it's for families with children in the Riverbank School District who are living in unsuitable housing or no housing at all, and want to know how they can get put on the waiting list. The need is great out here in Riverbank for affordable housing, and somebody has to stand up, and somebody has to take all the blows and be willing to take all the strikes on the back and stand up for what is right in our community. And hardworking citizens who can't afford a house is not right. Somebody has to stand up and say that we're going to stand with you and make sure that you and your family have what you need. And the council and the mayor and the staff have done that. They have said that we want everyone to have a safe place to lay their head when they come home from school or work. And we're very proud of what we've brought so far. And it is ever changing and ever moving. And we are taking into consideration everybody's thoughts, so that way we can make it the best place we can make it. And for these fees and these fees waivers, what it is that we're short in our budget. The money that we're getting from Home Key, we need additional money. We needed, last time we came here, $8 million extra dollars. So if we ask you for 2.6 million, then that gets us 5.2 million when it comes to Home Key. Okay, then we're only short like 2.4 million. So then we're going to other grants in the county and whatnot, and we're looking to try to get the money that we need to move this project's budget forward. It's not that we don't think we're going to use water. It's not that we don't think that we're going to use the road. We are hoping every single one of our residents gets to drive a car to work and drop their kids off at school. We are hoping that every single resident family member gets to take a shower every night and use the water. But we can't come forward and say that on the application. What it is that we need this money to match more funds so we can move forward with the project. We're not trying to say that we're not going to use these services, because God willing, all of our residents will use these services. We're just looking for more money to push this project forward.
So we have one on Zoom. Phone number ending in 3108. can you please unmute? Go ahead, can you hear us? Mrs. Talbert, can you hear us? There you go. Did she mute again? Mrs. Talbert, can you hear us? You could go ahead and talk. She appears to be unmuted, but we're not hearing her. And she muted again.
Mrs. Halbert, please go ahead.
In the meantime, is there anyone here who, yes, please come up.
I did write a little card. I don't know what happened to it.
It's, you put it for 14.2 and 14.3 in this.
Yeah,
is-
we both did. We were mistaken, so
Okay,
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah. But then I saw that it was a closed session, so I was like, that doesn't make sense. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Mary Chris, and I'm a resident also of the Crossroads West. I'm here today to talk about our small but mighty community. Also, there are some people online and also physically here, and I understand that I will talk to the fee waiver, but I will go on with my little note here. When my family, and I know that other families in the community moved into here, we were presented with a vision. We were presented with a vision of an upscale neighborhood. We were excited for the walkable, shopping area, the bike paths, walking paths, a new school, a fire station. That's what we were presented with the city plans when we went to the developer. And these features we saw was a great investment into our future. We were eager to be part of the community and the growth and success of it. However, we weren't made aware of the consideration of, permanent local housing or transitional housing as a development, but I recognize that it's very important and valuable for those who are in need. I do believe that we have to approach it with implementation, with great care and consideration, especially in the community that has already seen significant investments by families who are working hard to build our futures. Also, a key concern is the impact of development that will have on families like mine who have long-term commitments to this neighborhood, but many of us have invested substantial resources into building our homes, and we want to ensure that the community's integrity is preserved. So introducing this development, you should also consider the impact to undermine the stability of our neighborhood, and something that we all want to avoid. Not to say that transitional permanent local housing isn't important, but I understand that the Sierra House also provides the needed services for the community. And I know that the funds could run out. So, something that we can consider is to allocating the money towards that to continue, the program to grow, right? Because we want to make sure that it remains vital to the region. And just redirecting the resources here would not only just continue to help those in need, but prevent any unnecessary disruptions in our own stability in our neighborhood. Also, I know that with the 20.1 million funding that you will be getting in supporting this development, we just propose that the funds be used to continue supporting established programs to ensure the longevity, and that if new housing initiatives are pursued, we urge that you carefully consider the areas that are better suited to accommodate this type of housing without potentially destabilizing the communities like ours, which we are still in the early stages of development within our small but mighty community. I just want to also suggest that there are also other areas in the town of Riverbank that could be suited for this purpose, and that it could be effectively accommodated for this type of housing without potentially destabilizing our community with the early stages, especially as an example, getting our opinion, like how the request was for Verizon to getting their opinion for the outreach. Like Councilmember Uribe had asked, like, what are they doing to go out into the community to ask the opinion? We would really like to be, part of that. We're fully committed
to making sure that our concerns are heard. We actually started a petition that I want to pass out to you, and that our voices are heard for the well-being for our community. And I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We had another public comment. What is the name?
For Sue Barnes.
My first question is, I'm addressing the waivers, but then are we still going to be able to say what we came here for? I mean, right now, we're
So-
talking about the waivers.
Right.
Okay,
And maybe this is another question for me is when is this item gonna come back?
So I will confirm with our Community Development Director, this particular development falls under the Crossroads West specific plan. The proposed project is on 2 parcels that have already been evaluated for high-density residential housing, which this project would fit. Now, the question that I would have for our Community Development Director is whether, because of the Crossroads West specific plan and the built-in administrative approvals, whether it would require a public hearing through the Planning Commission for architectural and site plan review, or if there are already the built-in administrative approvals to do that at the staff level.
Good evening, everyone. Just to clarify Maricella's comment on the Crossroads West specific plan, it is accurate that some form of environmental review took place with the Crossroads West approval. They evaluated that particular corner as high-density residential. There is some, in terms of permitting that site, there is some discretionary approvals that the developer or any developer at that site would still have to come back and go through. In researching this before the meeting, it looked like they would need to do a full public hearing with the Planning Commission. With that, it would be a 300-foot notification, which is our typical radius for notification, as well as a newspaper ad. So I don't know if you have any additional questions on the process, but I'd happy to go into.
No, I think that that answers it. And for the public who has broader concerns, there will be a planning commission meeting. Do you know when they'll be ready for that?
No, at this point, we have not gone through, typically an applicant would go through a pre-application or a pre-development process. That would kind of flesh out the fatal flaws of the project. It's not mandatory, but it's always suggested. Then after that, a formal application would be made. We would ultimately get to a planning commission hearing. We do not currently have an application on file for this project.
Thank you. So for the record, there will be a public planning commission hearing. It will come back to the council. There will be notice within 300 feet of the project and a newspaper ad for the project as a whole. So there will be plenty of opportunity for general discussion. Did you want to still make a comment on the fee waiver portion? Please.
okay. I'm Sue Barnes and I live in the Crossroads West. Having worked in the construction industry and have been a landlord and owned rentals, and a lot of my basis for wanting to be heard is that the developer said this is permanent supportive housing, but the young lady, which I sound like she's part of the project, I don't know, but anyway, she alluded to it's not permanent. And then it sounds like that they've gone from different styles of housing and then changed it. And to me, it sounds like they don't have a solid plan anyway. They don't have the money. And I feel like that, like all of the other comments that were made,
Our area there is not suited for this kind of housing. It's gone from newspaper article of 36 houses to now 67. You're only talking about serving 67 individuals or families. When I moved here, the homeless were non-visible. Now there are a few, but they seem to be established. And I don't see what we're doing to help them get off the street. And along with that is the water saving toilets, et cetera. That's all standard requirements in building projects these days. $2 million to waive fees is, and he kept alluding to that if you did waive those fees, then that matching fund would come in from some other source for their project. I'm not clear on that. I talked to a resident on that street today, and there's no speed limit on that street. The street is pothole alley. They have speeding problems all the time. There are accidents there. There was just a murder there. It's not an area that is at the given situation the most ideal anyway. And what about the prevailing wage? He says they'll build off-site, but prevailing wage is 3 times what normal standard wage is. So no matter what, you're somehow going to pay, which means we're going to pay. And we don't feel like we should be impacted by this project in any way as far as taxes. I mean, that's not even a consideration. The resident said that street floods always in a lot of places along there, and I'm not sure what this existing water drainage system that he was suggesting that they might tie into. I'm not sure. Okay. I guess that's it. I'll come back to the other meeting. Yeah, because the Zellman project has been sort of a complete scam according to their neighbors in that cul-de-sac. So I will be back, and I would like to have this get us a newsletter. I had never heard of this until a petition came around.
Thank you for that suggestion, and maybe we could add it to our utility newsletter.
Do we want to try online again?
Are there any other public comments before we move?
Could you please come up to?
All right, I just wanted to say for the record, our community does have an active petition against this project, and we have close to 200 signatures already, and we're just getting started. Thank you.
Thank you. So 1 second, could you come up to the mic? Thank you for the folks online as well.
How many do we need on a petition to have an impact?
There's no policy with regards to petitions. Those are just taken as public comment.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. One other public comment?
We do have some online as well.
She's already commented, Mayor, so you may want to limit.
Yes, we'll take yours, but we're gonna move on to new comments after.
Okay, that's fine.
Since you have your-
I just kind of wanted to understand a little bit better. This is one of my first times being involved in this. And can you guys explain the process as to how this is in the agenda multiple times, but yet there's no appropriate application submitted as we heard from city planning, and no notification to, little to no notification to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the online ones and we'll come back to.
Okay. The last name Hughes, can you unmute?
Hi, this is Milan Hughes with Thurman Consulting. We are working with CVCR as the grant writer for this project. I know there was a couple questions specifically on where we are with the grant. We're in the process of getting the grant ready for submission, working through all of the individual criteria that are attached to it. So that has kind of delayed our pre-application meeting. Within that, we have spoken with Joshua, and I am prepared to get that meeting started, but it is a little bit of a lengthy process. There's a lot of steps within the actual design of the project
that still need to be incorporated. And that, even in any type of development, whether it be for profit, affordable, is a long process. As has been alluded, our initial location for this project was the park within Riverbank, which was actually initially slated for affordable housing, but it was changed recently. So this project has been a pivot from what our initial plans were, which is why you have seen some of the things change and fluctuate in the way that they have. Our goal is to keep the project as stable as it is now, keeping everything in place. I would like to make the distinction that it is permanent supportive housing, and that is the distinction that it is falling under. But within that, it has an AMI restriction of 30%. So somebody that makes 120 or 80% AMI would not be able to live in that housing and receive the services that come along with that. Additionally, that person has to be, allocated to the project through the regional CLC process. So this isn't necessarily like a shelter, like a woman and children shelter, where there's like a line out the door waiting to get in on a weekly basis, or a 90-day transition program where we're taking people in and putting them back out on the streets. The goal of this is to put people in a situation where they can elevate their standard of living on their own and elevate into those higher classes of AMI and be able to afford living elsewhere within Riverbank. I would also like to distinguish, as far as the permits go, our goal with this is to bring in as much funding from the Home Key Award as possible. Obviously, that comes from state funds, and that doesn't come from anything that is coming from Riverbank. While I can acknowledge that this does take from the city's coffers, and it is gonna, incorporate some work to be done, our goal is to avoid asking the city for any flat out funds from the taxpayers in any way. So that is why we're coming with a fee waiver. We're not saying, hey, can we have $1 million in city funds? We're saying we're going through PLHA and all these other routes that are coming from either the state or that are being waived to produce additional funds from the state to come into the community. So within this, we're not bringing down dollars necessarily for our organizations, but we're bringing down dollars for the development itself, right? So at this point, a lot of our organizations are working pro bono and getting this work put in place so that we can do a development for the city.
Thank
Obviously,
you very much.
we're gonna-
That was the
oh,
time
sorry.
for the 3 minutes. I appreciate that. Is there another?
Yes, we can try our other one. Phone number ending in 3108. Looks like you're unmuted. Go ahead and talk.
Mrs. Halber, you are unmuted. If you could please state your comment.
Right. We are going to come back to the council. Did you have a comment, Olivia? Please.
Good evening, Mayor Hernandez, council members, our citizens in the audience here. My name is Olivia Rambula, broker, owner of Timeless Real Estate. I own 2 homes here in Riverbank. I do live in Crossroads, and I was a supporter of this project. I still am. I think that when I first started to hear about this project, and just to remind you, I did think it was more catered towards the people that we do see that are the homeless that are here, that are walking around in Riverbank. What I did not realize is that it was to help out the people who were more like the foster care youth coming out of foster transition into the real world where they have to have a home, and not just coming out of those homes, just giving them a step so they can get their stuff together and become great abiding citizens of our town, county, of our state, and to get their jobs and to get themselves on their feet. Coming out of foster homes, I do have family that has been in that position, and just being thrown out when you're 18, and not saying that happens with everyone, but it does happen with some, and it just leaves them with no alternatives. So they will be those people on the street, which we don't want. Also, I did hear this for people who were in transition, families that were in transition. So there are times where in the past I have experienced, and I have shared this, I've experienced my bout with homelessness as a child, as a young adult, as a teenager, more so as a teenager. And in that situation, I don't feel like I was a specific kind of people. I was the same people as you guys are. I was you. I just didn't have a permanent housing. And part of the reason we have had homes that my parents had rented, and the owner decided to sell them. And so at that point of time, there were a lot of places that were more affordable for whatever they made. And this was just getting, something like this would have been great to help them get back on their feet so that we weren't completely homeless, not at different times, or, you know, living on somebody's couch, sharing a house with the aunt, uncle, or whoever, having to be homeless at certain parts of times. I was very grateful that the times that I did have shelter from a car that I had to stay in at different points at that time. I think I have accomplished a lot over the years, and I think it was just just a community of support through family members and friends who did take us in at different times to help us get to the point to where I can be in a position to own 2 homes here in Riverbank, not to say other places in our Stanislaus County community. I know that the people that are going to be in this transition housing, they're going to be people like you and me. They just need a spot and a place to live. And I just think we need to look at that. And as far as the fees, take a look at those and see what work with the home affordability plans that we have and use those.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to come back to council. Are there any further comments?
I would like to ask Tom if I can make a motion that this be tabled until it's taken to Planning Commission. I have concerns that this hasn't been approved, hasn't had a pre-application done, and we're already waiving fees when they're not even finalized their drawings. And I don't feel at this time that I can make a informed decision on this.
Clarification, not planning, but just going through the process for the pre-application. Yeah, correct.
May not need that, but
So what would that
that
motion?
would be in order.
I make a motion that this be
Can I-
tabled.
Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
Can I make a quick comment before I second yours? And the only reason I think we should go down this route is we have no real justifications to actually waive anything. I think this process is a little premature. I just heard for the first time today that now we're adding the 1 bedrooms back into the project. So does that affect any of the other fees, right? So it's a lot of moving processes, right? And I think as our community director, development director stated, like we got to flush this out and figure out what we're actually doing. And so I will second your motion.
I would
Hold on.
say that I would be specific as to what the trigger is, and you may want to defer to staff on what that might be.
Before we make a motion, we did have a hand raised online for Katrina.
Would you like to allow for that public comment, Mayor?
We have closed public comment, but it sounds like the motion will be to come back to another public meeting. So I would encourage folks to tune in and to, make the appropriate comments at that time. So let's get clarification on what that trigger is, right, for the motion at the present.
It sounds to me, first of all, that there hasn't been any public comment on the actual project, and I'd like to see that done first. So what would that look like?
So if you would like it to go through that public process, that's going to require months, which would then exclude it from being able to apply for this grant. So typically what we would want to see is at a minimum, the pre-development meeting that our community development director shared, where we would be able to vet through some of that information and have a solidified plan. As Councilmember Uribe mentioned, the plan is sort of fluctuating from meeting to meeting.
Right.
We've now heard that they're bringing back the 1 bedrooms. And so what does that do to the fees? What does that do to the development? How is stormwater going to be addressed? Some of those conversations can happen. And yet still allow for them to have the time to be able to apply for the grant, because there is a deadline. I don't recall what that deadline is off the top of my head, but
It sounds like that's not even ready to go yet, from what I'm hearing.
So-
They're still doing the application.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing a few things, and the reason why, and maybe this could provide some clarification, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been changing, but we've been moving with the process, having previously committed to being partners in a sense to move this project along. And so I think it is a little uneasy that the project has changed a bit, but I think we knew that moving forward because of the previous public conversations that we've had. So did you want to provide clarification for when that would be, the next public hearing would be?
Personally, I would like to make a motion that they come back as a presentation when they have their application finalized so that we can review and citizens can comment on it and we can take that information in. And then as a separate item after that, then we'll look at the fees and the waivers.
that would make it too late for them to apply.
For the home key
Just
plus
for
grant?
clarification purposes. So
So how soon when's the application have to be in?
if we can unmute Milan, he would be able to.
Hi, the application is due in May, but it is an ongoing admission process. So we need to get it in as soon as possible. The longer it goes out, the less chance we have of being awarded.
There's just, in my opinion, and I think in Luis's, there's been no public comment. They're asking for fee waiver when they don't really have a finalized application, and that concerns me.
So I'll make a quick comment directly to Milan. So Milan, at the last council meeting, I directed the question specifically at you, knowing some concerns, some deadlines that weren't being met. And I asked you specifically, how are the conversations going between you and the community development director? My kind of way of encouraging you to start this process, and the process still hasn't been started. And so that's my concern. And so I think the pre-development application process keeps it on track, and we actually get to see what we're asking for when we're being asked to waive all of this. If there's a legitimate justification that we've done for other businesses, et cetera, then we would consider it at that time. But I think the fair process and to keep them on track for the Home Key Plus application is the pre-development process. When that has been met, and then bring it back to council, then we can discuss these fees. That's where I would like to go.
Did you want to add anything on this side?
I think the pre-development process and then make sure that plans are included, especially addressing some of these things specifically there in the fee waiver, like the storm drain specifically, because when Tractor Supply came to us, they came to us with exact plans of what that storm drainage would look like. So, and that's just one of the many things on here that I just don't think we're getting answers on right now at this time. So.
Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion that this be put on hold until a pre-development process has been completed.
And I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Yes.
Councilmember Pimentel?
Yes.
Councilmember Call?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fosse?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
So motion passes for the item to be returned to the council once the pre-development application process has been completed for the fee waiver consideration and the PHLA.
Citizens out in our audience and who are online, please watch the agendas and make sure that you come to the next meeting where this is brought up.
you should be watching the agenda every week because we always have exciting things going on. But make sure you're here the next time it happens so that your feelings are included. Thank you.
Thank you. So that being said, comments and reports from city manager.
No comments from staff tonight.
Do you want to continue those sentiments, Vice Mayor? Do you have a report?
Okay, so March 18th. If you've ever wanted to know what's happening at the Riverbank Industrial Park, I'm having an open house for you. Please come out, see me, talk to me. They will have a description of the businesses that are there. They have employment opportunities. So if you know somebody's looking for a job, we'll have coffee and food. I don't know what food. Amenis is sponsoring it with me, who also is going to be building a project out there. So I look forward to seeing people there. Also, for those that live in Crossroads, I've been concerned about what I'm seeing on Facebook. I live on Roselle, and so I travel through Crossroads. Please be aware that that is a housing development. It is not a speedway. It is not, the stop sign is not optional. It's a stop sign. Please be aware people are walking their animals. People are walking, and slow down, and please be careful. I've been seeing a little bit too much of not cool things happening. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Uribe.
No comments tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Pimentel.
I just want to say that on Friday, the Sister City Committee met at the Historic Museum. They now have 7 members and President Calvin Campbell. Thank you, Cal, for doing a great job at the meetings. They have several projects coming up. If you'd like to get involved, see me or Councilman Uribe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Call.
Today I got to ride with the Stanislaus Consolidated Fire. I didn't get to work like Councilmember Uribe, but I did use the hose, and that thing's really has a lot of pressure coming out of it. And I fell a couple times. But I was also able to gather information on our partnerships with Modesto Fire and our drop boundaries to ensure our community is safe. I know previously we've heard concerns with the railroad tracks and potentially stopping first responders from getting over the tracks. But for those who don't know, we have a drop boundary agreement with Modesto Fire Department, where in the event of an emergency and there could be a delay in the call time because of the train, on Mabel by Bayer High School, there is a fire department who can also respond to the Riverbank community. So that's the drop boundary agreement essentially. And I was able to go over all of the different things that the fire department does. They don't just put out fires. We have the paramedics. Some of the shifts do have a paramedic, and they just wear multiple hats with the saving measures. They have bulletproof vests. They have CPR gear. So it just was really enlightening for me. And then RYBSA had their opening day. Mayor Hernandez and I were both able to throw out the first pitch. And I just wanted to read something that the president sent to me. Eddie Carrillo, on behalf of Riverbank Baseball and Softball Association. I'd like to thank our mayor, Rachel Hernandez, and our city councilwoman, Stacy Call, for coming out on Saturday, March 8th for our opening day ceremony. They each threw a strike to help us kick off the season. I invite you all to come out during the season. We play games Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays from now until May 10th. And closing ceremony is May 17th. The last thing that I'll talk about is Stanislaus Latino Chamber. Cooper Lane did their grand opening, and there's quite a few of us there actually. So that was actually a lot of fun. Super cute store. And then March 26th is the business learning series with an emphasis on human resources. And as a small business, I cannot stress the importance of knowing how to handle employee situations. So I encourage everyone to go there. And then Red Shield is having an open house March 25th. For those who don't know what the Red Shield is, it's in South Modesto, and it's a community recreation area. They have a pool. They offer services to that lower income neighborhood. I went to day camps there when I was a kid, so I'm super excited to go back and see everything that they've done to it. And then they have a chamber mixer March 20th at Mislin Honda, and then everyone left. But if anybody needs to get a hold of me, My email is scall@riverbank.org and my phone number is 209-719-9254.
Thank you. So today was a meeting actually for the Board of Supervisors where there was an item to discuss our 911 receiving dispatch. Yes, I'm like, I have the acronyms in my head. And so we'll provide a more full report the next meeting, but there's essentially a potential addition with sheriff looking to wanting to incorporate a new system to respond to calls called Oracle. Whereas did it move forward with the county?
So for those that are not familiar with how we have dispatch services here, we have a joint powers authority between Stanislaus County and the city of Modesto who oversee SR 911. So when we talk about SR 911, those are the two agencies that are participants within that. We contract with the Sheriff's Department, which is a division underneath the county. Therefore, we participate in SR 911 dispatch services. There has been some ongoing discussions about improving the software that they currently use for dispatch services to ensure that there's no dropped calls, to add some more information availability between all of the different agencies, including fire and EMS, to make sure that your calls are getting responded to as quickly as possible and that we can dispatch those services to you as quickly as possible. There had been some concerns with regards to the new software that's being proposed. And so ongoing discussions at the county level have been, how do we address those software concerns? So at their meeting today, they did move forward with the software that was originally proposed to be used, Central Square, but also working with the Sheriff's Department with regards to their preferred software, which is called Oracle, to be able to incorporate that within that Central Square system as well. So it looks like they were able to reach kind of a happy medium of the two softwares and being able to have them work together.
Thank you for that. And though this is a sheriff, board of supervisors led discussion and decision, we have made it clear that the cities want to be involved in the conversations because ultimately this will affect our response times and costs, but we will keep you posted on that. That is it for me. We are moving on to closed session. Item 14.1, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 549568. Property 3300 Atchison Road, agency negotiator Maricela H. Garcia, city manager, property negotiator Del Rio City Center LLC, under negotiation, price, terms, payment, or both. Item 14.2, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 549568, property 2161 and 2173 Morrill Road. Agency negotiator Maricela H. Garcia, city manager, property negotiator Albert and Susie Dedesho, 2005 trust. And then item 14.3, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 549568, property Morrill Road. Agency negotiator Maricela H. Garcia, city manager, property negotiator Morrill Road LLC. Are there any public comments on any of these closed session items? If none, we will now go into closed session. We are reconvening from closed session. Item 15.1, conference with real property negotiators. Do I have to read it all? Okay, direction has been provided to staff. Item 15.2, conference with real property negotiators. Direction has been provided to staff. Item 15.3, direction has been provided to staff. The next regular city council meeting will be on Tuesday, March 25th. This meeting is now adjourned.